Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ASIPP's Automation through Artificial Intelligence in IPM. Before we get started this morning, we'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you're listening with your computer speakers, make sure your speakers are turned on and the volume is turned up to an audible level. If you experience audio issues, you may dial into the conference using the dial-in number listed in the webinar registration link. If at any point throughout today's webinar you experience technical issues, try refreshing your stream. If this does not help, you may want to exit out of your browser and log back into the webinar the same way you did the first time. To ask a question, click on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Type your question in the box and hit the submit button. We will attempt to answer as many questions as we can today, and you're welcome to submit them at any time. We will also answer these questions at the end of each presentation and at the end of the day. And now I'm going to turn the webinar over to Dr. Laxmi Manjikani. Thank you. I think you're muted. I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
Are you unmuted, Dr. Manjikani?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So this is all exciting. We are going to talk on a different topic and how this is going to influence our future of interventional pain management or pain medicine or medicine in general. In essence, they're doing a lot at White House, in the administration, Congress, everywhere. If you look at the stock market, probably most of the stocks are related to, not most, but they have significant influence on the market if it goes up or goes down. So we are going to go ahead and discuss about how we can apply them into interventional pain management today. Again, we want to be the number one before anybody else takes over. I'm sure everybody will take over, but right now we are the only ones. I want to thank everyone for attending the webinar. And if you want any of the virtual courses from before, you can order from here, and this will be given to you. Before I start anything, I always like to thank my parents and my grandmother. Actually, she was the one who said I was going to be the doctor when everybody had said I won't be worth anything. And she financed my medical education. She paid for it, and my parents worked pretty hard to do that. So when we are going into this automation and artificial intelligence, it reminds me of what I remember from her is that we will have a small lamp in a house to read in the evening and try to read everything when there is sunlight. Today we have this AI and do so many things unbelievable. It is like back to the future. So what we have seen in the past is going to be a reality into the future. Again, we also need to remember our forefathers. This is Dr. Raj and Dr. Rax. He's still giving lectures and teaching. And that is myself. I'm getting older and older. This is my conflicts of interest. We really don't need that for this lecture, but still. Now we have multiple partnerships. The AI is one of our partnerships, but right now we have partnerships with the Willow Medical Liability Program, which gives us 30% savings. We also have a GPO partnership with Henry Schein and PedsPal. So it used to be that contrast was like $30 if you had a GPO, and if you were buying outside the GPO, $60. Then we started the GPO and dropped it to $3.10 or $2.50. So it's significantly dropped. So, but costs are going up. We're still behind. We also have Fedora billing and revenue cycle. The rate is 4% per ASIPP members. And then related to our present one, we have OnDoc AI. If you join this, you get a 50% discount for ASIP members. That is $99 per month. You can look at many, many advantages what you can have by joining this. We are also starting the Doc Matter. This is where you can discuss multiple cases and your experiences. It is not a peer-reviewed website, but it gives you an opportunity to look at various things. Now, there are multiple critical issues facing IPM. Now, when you are in practice, only thing you know is that your money is not coming in or how much it is going to come in, or do you have money to pay for the bills? But we are always working on fee schedules, like the ASIP board and myself. We always work on fee schedule on daily basis, how we can improve this, how we can reduce that 2.8% cut, and also the 2% cut from Obamacare, which continues to boggle us. That is, we are experiencing a 4.8% cut. Ironically, it is so bad that last year in November, when they issued a final rule, they said to balance the budget, we have to reduce physician payment by 2.8%. Along with that, 2% sequester cut was there. So it is 4.8%. Then comes on January 8th, they issue another memo, a rule saying that they will give 4.3% increase for Medicare Advantage plans. That is a $21 billion. That is what it costs, $20 billion to fix the 2.8% cut. Here it is $21 billion. Overall, Medicare Advantage plans are making $110 billion a year, more than regular Medicare patients. Why is that? Nobody is looking at it. The worst thing I found just last week was that for Medicare Advantage, they collect $198 in their fee, copay, the fee itself, Medicare fee, from all Medicare recipients, not just the ones who have the Medicare Advantage, but also the people who don't have the Medicare Advantage, regular Medicare. So that is so bad. We are trying to control those things. Then we have multiple issues related to the documentation and compliance, leading to fraud and abuse investigations. There is no rhyme or reason how they do evaluate these things, and there is no help. So we are introducing a bill in Congress to control these things. Hopefully, what we are going to learn today is going to make it easier and more compliant with documentation and compliance with other regulations. Telehealth, this is very important for our patients. Most of our practices receive patients from long distances, poor patients, old patients. They can't afford to visit us every time or every 2 months. So telehealth is extremely important. Biden administration, just like all fee schedules, everything, they said it was going to expire on March 30th. So we have to lobby for this. Our advocacy has helped to add an extension for 6 months at a cost of $1 billion. I'm not sure why it would cost more, but in any case, that is what CBO said. We have to accept it. And we were able to get that into the law. This is what happened. This is the bill we added into, and subsequently it passed. So these are the Medicare physician updates. Look at how it goes from 2001. You show a little bit here, but here it is 25 is even lower. But it does not include this 2% cut. If you include that 2% cut, it will be less than what we were making in 2001. So this is the point where ASIPP is really working hard on this. We have presented a plan to the Congress how they can save this $880 billion without touching Medicare or Medicaid, actually. So coming to AI, it is starting to change how we practice clinically through new tools and services. Of course, patient safety is the most important thing. It is of paramount. Our goal is to be involved from a policy perspective as AI becomes more available to patients and providers so that it won't be abused. If we don't take leadership ourselves, somebody else will take, that will be the payers. So you always know that saying, either you want to be at the table or on the table, on the menu. So we want to be at the table. There are many, many new applications in AI in medicine. Probably as we are talking, there's some other application will come up. So we are going to use this for clinical documentation and scribing, for patient education and engagement, for automated imaging analysis. They are saying that if you come to annual meeting, you can listen to Pradeep. He will give you the data on how accurate these are. Right now, a MRI can be read at 92% accuracy than a human being. Human beings are only 87%, so that is better than radiologists. But both of them together, it will be much better, 100%. Treatment planning and decision support, remote patient monitoring, it assists you in diagnosis, predictive analytics, medical research and literature analysis. You can actually publish the papers are based on this. Workflow optimization, population health management, medication management, telehealth enhancement, and more. But also remember, there can be a lot of abuses. We can have multiple issues if you don't control properly. So today we are going to start with Beyond Dictation. Ryan Badwani and Amol Soyan will be talking about it. Then we will be talking about introducing artificial intelligence and physician avatars. This is where you tape 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever the time you want to take, but you can develop hundreds and thousands of videos based on that. This is OnDoc via AI. So if you join as a member, you're going to get all these advantages. We have a panel discussion, then we go through automatic education with AI solutions for pre and post-operative care. From encounter reimbursement, AI solution for documentation and billing. So these are all other companies, the doctors and the company folks are presenting that. Then we have continuous care, leveraging AI avatars for RTM, RPM, patient engagement. Dr. Paul Hubble, most of you know him. He's pretty active on LinkedIn and in ASIPP. He's the CEO of Louisiana Society of Interventional Pain Physicians. Then we have immersive education, transforming pain management procedures. Finally, we will have panel discussion at the end of 3 hours. So these are all the organizations providing the education and also are supporting this webinar. So as of now, we have multiple AI-generated patient education library. These are approved by ASIPP, and this is what we use in our practice. This is patient engagement. So for Sarah Health from the field, what is really like, Paul Hubble is going to present along with Yvonne Harmon. The next one is documentation in less than 40 seconds. I really want to see this. I don't know how CMS is going to react to this, but this is really pretty cool. Benefits of experienced physicians from the comfort of your home. And don't forget, we have ASIPP 2025. This is the most important meeting you will ever attend. There will be two Medicare directors, two chairs of committees, and many, many other subjects. I want you to go and look at all the curriculum, including AMA. If there are any two members of the Congress who are the chairmen of the two important committees, and two Medicare directors. That doesn't happen that easily, but it is happening here. Then we will have the Toby Orthobiologic Symposium. So here I will close and we will get started on the program. I want to let you know that the fear is the choice word here. So there are two choices: forget everything and run. We don't want to do that. The other choice is face everything and rise. That is the choice we would like. Failure is not falling down, but refusing to get up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montacani. Great talk and introduction. And guys, I am really excited about this webinar. We have a lot of really cool topics coming up and a lot of really practical information. One of the things about AI is that there's a lot of buzzwords and a lot of things about it, but hey, thanks, buddy. Thank you. Sorry, I got a 5-year-old. But I have to tell you, this webinar is uniquely suited to very practical uses and things that you can actually integrate into your practice right now. So we're going to start with our first topic with my friend and colleague, Dr. Ryan Budwani. And we're going to talk about beyond dictation using large language models to transform medical documentation, communications, and publications. This is a really exciting lecture. I know a lot of people have spent a lot of time on it, and I think you're going to see some cool stuff. So to kick it off, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, and we'll get started.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for the wonderful introduction, and Dr. Montacani for sharing your wisdom and believing in the future of what medicine looks like, especially with the advances in artificial intelligence that are happening right in front of us. And I think it's such an important time for us to begin this conversation, because like he said, right, if we're not going to drive this conversation, then we're going to be the ones that are going to be dictated on what to do, and potentially by a machine like artificial intelligence telling us how and how we cannot practice. So that's kind of why we really wanted to start off with this topic. Next slide, please. So the agenda for today, for this particular topic, is going to be trying to understand what an LLM is, which is a large language model, right? What are hallucinations, which is the predictability of the text that are interpreted by the language models? How it can help with documentation, how it can help us actually fight appeals, and how it can assist in patient communication and diagnosis. And then finally, what it can do to help with supporting publications. Next slide. So what's an LLM? Okay, you guys have been hearing this hot keyword, the buzzword every day has been, artificial intelligence, NVIDIA, all these stocks related to, the future and the evolution of this technology. Simply, right, I mean, the reason I start off with this really interesting picture, if you guys can recognize that on the top right-hand side of your screen, that's the Matrix, right? So what, about 15, 20 years ago, they had this really great movie out there about the Matrix. And the reason I use this as an example is because the way large language models work on the back end of it is just codes making associations. So for you guys, if you remember when Neo or Tank or whoever from that movie was looking at the screen, they could recognize these patterns. These patterns showed that if that was an agent or a bad actor or a friendly environment. And I say that because it helps us to reflect on the video actually down, or on the picture down below. When you type in on ChatGPT, like show me a chicken, or what is a chicken or a dog or a cat, same as, what is spinal cord stenosis? The way a large language model interprets this data is based on associations. So another way to actually think about this is think about a large language model or the information that ChatGPT has as a really advanced medical assistant, or like a medical student or fellow or resident that has essentially read every document out there, has gone to every webinar out there, and has read every single research paper on there on that particular topic. So it has all the information. And the way it predicts it is not really how a human would predict it. It predicts it based on the algorithm that's set there. And so it slowly uses that information to get smarter, but in that it can also make mistakes. And so with that, we're going to go to the next slide. So I'll tell you what that really means, right? So what are LLM hallucinations? When people say you can't trust AI completely, it's not that you can't trust it completely. It's just that when artificial intelligence is using this information to make either diagnosis or assist in diagnosis or assisting in what the information is going to be reflective of, it's doing it based on trillions of data points. And so an example at the bottom of this, kind of talks about, what is the capital of Mars? And this is just really done as a comical level, but, it says the capital of Mars is Muskland. That's not really accurate, right? But just based on the data that artificial intelligence is incorporating and is regurgitating, that's kind of what it comes up with. And so the reason I mentioned this, just like a medical student, right? At this stage on where this technology is, it requires somebody to actually go back in and verify, is this information accurate? And so while all that information is there, while the predictability is strong and it can give us access to data points and regurgitate a lot of information that a simple human could not in a single lifetime, it also requires us to make sure that there is no misinterpretation, and if so, that it requires a human to assist it. So that's something we need to be really mindful of, because there is always fear with newer technology. But I don't think the fear should actually cloud our judgment and our ability to use this technology to enhance what we can do for our patients. Because at the end of the day, the only reason we're all on this conference today is to improve the way we provide care for our patients, to improve their access, and really to fulfill our oath as physicians to enhance what we can do for them. And so what I believe, and what I believe the leadership of ASIPP and industry, as well as many societies out there believes in this day and time, is that we need to use all this technology out there, be mindful of this technology so we can enhance what we can do for our patients on a daily basis. Next slide. So I think on this slide, Dr. Sohn's going to talk a little bit about, what we can do to customize some of these LLM platforms.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So I think it's really important to integrate some of these large language models into your practice, right? Because you can actually customize, you can build, prompt templates based on knowledge bases that are out there. And one of the most unique things is ASIPP has this huge compendium of data from all our studies and systematic reviews, et cetera, that are out there that could potentially be used to create large language models. But really, what does it mean for you? Right? How do you integrate it into your clinical workflows? And one thing that we're going to show you here in a little bit is solutions that can minimize the manual input of data for you. And not only that, some of the intelligence that's behind a large language model can really help you craft notes, documentation, and other things that are supremely helpful. One of the neat things about large language models is that to some extent, they are intelligent enough to understand context. I know Ryan had talked to you about that earlier. And in that first slide, you had this four-dimensional graph, and there was the word apple there, right? So apple can mean multiple things. You see it right there, right? Apple can mean a fruit, right? Banana, but can also mean the company that makes the iPhone. It can also mean the company that, releases all the Beatles records, the record label. There's a lot of meaning to it. But a lot of the large language models are now intelligent enough to not just understand the word, but the context behind the word. And I think that's only going to get better. And you can go back to that slide that I was on, but that's only going to get better. I think at this point in time, I feel like it's game ready for us to start integrating into our practice with your personal supervision and review of it. And we'll show you how to do that. How do you integrate it to your EMR? Because integration is great, but is it necessary? And we're also going to teach you how to evaluate staff burden changes as you integrate AI tools. So we'll move on to the next slide. So this is a picture of some AI-enabled hardware. You see this Plod Note AI voice recorder here available, not necessarily endorsing any product, but just kind of showing you what it is and sort of how one of those AI-enabled hardware works. And let's talk a little bit about LLMs for documentation, because this is an important thing. I know Ryan goes through this all the time, and so do I. We all get denials from insurance companies. So, how do you build a custom prompt to address common procedure denials, consultation note write-ups, building a new patient consultation template for artificial intelligence to input data into? How about letters back to referrals? You can have a standardized patient update letter for referral partners. I mean, all this seems pretty helpful, right, Ryan? I mean, these are things that we could probably be using in our practice now. I'm sure you probably use medical assistants or other people to do it, or even free typing letters, and now it's take forever.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Dr. Sohn, I appreciate you mentioning all that because think about how much time we're investing, right? Working up a patient, knowing that they need a specific therapy, and then when we submit it to the powers that be, they deny it for whatever reason. And till now, the only way we could combat it is really go on hand-to-hand combat on the phone, talking to all these P2Ps and figure out, hey man, what can we do to actually figure this out, right? So the next slide, if we can go to the next slide. Basically, this is an example of what, an SI Fusion appeal letter looks like, right? And I mentioned this because if you can go into like ChatGPT or whatever and say, hey, you know what, give me an appeal letter for a 55-year-old with SI joint pain or whatever, it's going to give you a generic piece of information. What our goal is, and where I think that ASIPP and with the support of industry and like-minded clinicians and scientists can work together on, is actually creating these prompts. I think that as a society, if we were to create really specific prompts, because remember, these prompts are what we would input into these chat forms. And then the output would be extremely specific. So if you look on your left-hand side, that's a very specific prompt that we would put in. And if these prompts are readily available, throughout ASIPP that have been vetted and that have been organized for all kinds of modalities, right? Not just SI fusions, lumbar decompression, spinal cord stimulation, even simple things like lumbar medial branch blocks. And then we look at what the output looks like. Those outputs are actually created by those large language models. So it's trillions of data points, but it becomes more and more predictable and specific based on how accurate and specific that prompt is. And so till now, even right now, when we are actually engaging with any kind of AI platform or any chat box out there, we're just putting in a generic prompt. And what that is resulting in is a pretty generic output letter. And so it's not completely precise, but actually having that information inputted correctly, having a very specific prompt created by scientists and like-minded physicians. If we can actually input that, we're going to get a very specific output prompt. And that's going to be very important because that's going to change the way we communicate to insurance companies for denials and beyond. So next slide, please.
So Ryan, explain to me what you mean by prompt. Is that something, when you say that there'll be very specific prompts that are made, are you saying that they'll be made for us clinicians and we can sort of copy and paste that prompt, or how are you going to walk us through how that works here?
Right. So we can go through this video if you want and kind of show how that looks. And basically, there's two things before we start the video, but essentially, right, we can help. We can work with partners, like OnDoc and other members on this platform, but have basically a scientific driven group, either through ASIPP, that's reviewing what needs to be included in these prompts and what needs to actually be there for various letters, various kind of information. And once that is approved and thought of, then all our members would have access to that. And so that, say, if we need to write a specific either appeal letter or to come up with a specific type of diagnosis code or diagnosis or next step in management, we can actually input that data and use all the touch points, including all the research that's already published. And AI can actually read that instantaneously and generate what's the best next predictable option for that patient. So I don't know if that clears it up, but the reason I have this video up here, and this video is going to be led by my avatar assistant that you see on your top corner, kind of walks you through that process.
Hello, this is Dr. Budwani's avatar. Today, we are going to take a look at how LLMs process information to generate documentation. We will be using the Claude API interface made by Anthropic. The backbone of using an LLM is your prompt. In this instance, we are asking the AI to read a dictation of patient information and transform that data into a structured letter to an insurance company who has denied an SI joint fusion procedure for a patient. You can see that the prompt specifies the information to find in the dictation transcription. You will need to make sure to include this information when recording your dictation. It also defines the structure of the output, which will be the letter addressing the denial. Next, you will insert the transcript of your dictation. In most instances, the dictation hardware or software you are using may be able to automate the delivery of this transcript to an LLM through an API call. Now the API call has been made, and the LLM is structuring the data to then write your letter. Remember, your node is only as good as your prompt template and the input data you provide. As you generate more letters, you can evaluate how to improve your input dictation or your prompt template based on the output note generated. In just a few seconds, the process is complete. This is a letter from Ms. Doe addressing her denial of care for an SI joint fusion procedure. You will see that the document output matches our prompt template exactly and is populated with the patient-specific information we provided in our dictation. Thank you all for watching, and I hope this was helpful.
Next
Hello.
slide.
Oh, this is Dr. Help.
Sorry.
Perfect. So the reason we show that video, right, and we kind of walk you through that, is the key point on this is that the information that's being outputted is extremely based on the information that's being inputted, right? And those prompts are the instructions that you're actually putting into those large language models. So as they scour trillions of data points that are out there, every research paper that's ever been written on SI fusion, for example, every research that talks about, why you need to do an injection versus an RFA, and it's getting all that information together. The more important pieces of that is what you're putting in that input. And so that's how it translates into that letter. That letter becomes more and more specific. And I mention this because now more than ever, right, insurance companies are actually using artificial intelligence to send out automatic denials. And so we're kind of combating that by basically creating this other ability innate into the way we communicate them by fighting that off and by making sure that what we have here is quite accurate so that when they go out and try to find a reason to actually deny it, we've already included that so they're not able to actually get away with denying the care the patient needs. Now, the SOAP note prompt, again, it's the exact same thing, that if you have those data points available, we can use artificial intelligence to help generate a more accurate SOAP note and actually save a lot of time and improve efficiency on the back end of the clinic. Next up. Again, the same thing is for referral letter prompts as well. Like all of these things, the reason we're showing it in this way is that there's multiple usage platforms in the way we actually practice medicine, the way we actually handle day-to-day tasks in our clinic. So it's not just about making a diagnosis, but it's a lot of it is the back end of what makes the minutia of being a physician very challenging, because it's the paperwork that's there, and then it's a constant back and forth and making sure that not only is the information accurate, but accurate so much so that we're not getting pushback when we're trying to actually give the care the patient deserves. So with this, I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Sohan.
Yeah, I think one of the neat things about the SI fusion letter denial, just case prompt, is how specific that letter gets with this type of large language model. So, listing the patient medications that they're on, listing their exact imaging studies with the date that those imaging studies were done, listing when they had physical therapy, et cetera. Like all of that stuff is really important because people are now just typing in, write a denial appeal letter for SI fusion into ChatGPT. Sure, you get a letter, but it's relatively generic and it doesn't exactly list all of the various patient-specific topics that could be. Thanks, buddy. Sorry, guys. I got a 5-year-old running around. Hey, give me a second, buddy. So, those things are really important to have the patient-specific stuff in there. So let's talk about LLMs for patient communications. We have a lot of things that we do to interact with patients, pre-op instructions, post-op instructions, therapy instructions, and all of those things. But you can have a standard template that could be helpful for all of those things. But also, it could be customizable for patient-specific communications, not just listing the stuff, but, maybe including the patient's name or saying stuff in there like, oh, you had this procedure on this date, et cetera. And those types of things and that type of customization really can enhance the patient experience. Little things matter when you're dealing with patients, and these little touch points that help make your patient feel and understand that you know them as an individual and they're not just a number, and that these things are customizable for them specifically, can be really impactful as far as just patient satisfaction. And so we can move on. Yep, the next slide. And here's something really cool I want to go over is using LLMs for publication support. We have this whole custom knowledge base of ASIPP content, and that can really streamline academic writing. It's helpful in doing literature reviews, research synthesis, manuscript development and formatting, citation management. I mean, Ryan, what do you think about all this? I mean, for publication support and its use and utility?
Yeah, I think, this is really the next step, right? Because imagine, right, how much time we're already spending trying to gather this information. And so, and you've been on, some of these like email chains as I have when we're trying to work on a paper. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of email chains, making sure that everybody can get the accurate information together, who's doing what section, are we covering all the guidelines? And it's almost an impossible task for humans, not because it's difficult, it's just time consuming. And the thing that as physicians that's the most sacred in terms of what we do on a daily basis is the lack of time that we have. And so being able to go through all those data points and making sure that it's accurate and having everybody actually on the same page, that's where AI can actually help facilitate this. So I think that this is really the next step, making sure that we're actually integrating all the latest guidelines and every single thing that we're prescribing for the patients and doing for the patients, and integrating this across the board. I think honestly it's going to change the way and enhance the way we publish on all topics, not just in interventional pain management.
No, that's great, and so here's something that I'll show you. This is my avatar that I was able to make, and just to show you a case study on what Ryan was just talking about and how we can use the knowledge base. So we can go ahead and play the video.
Hello, this is Dr. Sowen's avatar. Today we are going to discuss how to build a custom knowledge base within an LLM. This knowledge project will be focused on peripheral nerve stimulation. We will be building our knowledge base using guidelines provided on the ASIPP website. There are a variety of guidelines available, but we will be focused specifically on the PNS guidelines, as they are newly published. The document we will be using is from 2024 and is 92 pages. This will be the training data for our PNS assistant. First, we need to upload the PNS guidelines to our knowledge base. After upload, the LLM will automatically convert the document into plain text and structure the data to help with answering your questions. Now we are ready to chat with our PNS assistant. I would like assistance with obtaining authorization for a 61-year-old male with post-TKA pain. Using the ASIPP guidelines, the AI will walk me through the medical necessity for the patient, including documentation requirements, diagnostic procedures needed, relevant tests and clearances, procedure planning, and finally, coding recommendations. I can also ask it to draft specific documentation to help with the process of procedure approval. In this case, we will generate a letter of medical necessity. If you would like more control over the output of your letters, you can do this by adding a sample letter of medical necessity for post-TKA pain to your project's knowledge base that your AI can use to draft the perfect letter for your patient. Thank you, everyone. I hope this was helpful.
You just think about all the publications and everything that ASIPP has done over the years, all the guidelines, et cetera. Just a huge knowledge base that could possibly be used and integrated into these large language models. Ryan, I just, before we close, there was a question in the chat that I think is a pretty interesting one. And that is, what are the HIPAA implications of entering patient information into a large language model? Are you aware of how that works?
So I think as far as I'm aware, there aren't any restrictions that are out there, right? Anytime you're inputting data into any of these large language models, it's not repeatable or re-accessible. So what that means is once you put that information out there, basically it's closed off from access to any other exit or entry point. That's what my current understanding of that is based on what information is available. And for that, I'm actually going to have John come on board from OnDoc AI to kind of better explain that, because that's a great question. And we've been trying to contemplate in the back end of how do we actually create safety nets to make sure that our patient information is always kept private?
Yeah, I'm not sure if, can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you great. Thank you.
And I'm not sure if you can see me or not, but just briefly, HIPAA compliance is all about how companies secure the data, basically, how they store it and how they encrypt it in transit. So I'm sure that Nate from Athelis will probably go over a little bit more specifically about sort of HIPAA compliance and what sort of the process is, but it is part of the evaluation. I would say don't just use, an LLM off the shelf. It's really, you want to consider that and make sure that any protocols or any software or hardware that you're using in terms of an environment does have HIPAA safety guidelines, SOC compliance, all of that. So when you're doing your vendor evaluation, the other vendors who are collecting patient information on here, they are HIPAA compliant. They do have systems that have been approved. So definitely keep it in mind. I wouldn't use ChatGPT or Claude off the shelf and put in patient information. I don't think, like Ryan said it, or Dr. Budwani said, it doesn't store it necessarily, but just to be safe, I'd use more of a.
And so, one thing, John, I appreciate that. And the one thing, is that if you try to put in patient information there, what it's basically going to go back and do is that, hey, due to patient privacy or due to personal privacy, we're not able to actually render this information through our platform. And so there are certain safety margins built into it. But again, it was never designed, right, to be used in the way that we are planning to use it, because it was designed for the general public. So if you type in data and say, hey, where does this person live? It's not going to give you that information. That's similar to, what is this person's blood pressure? It's not going to kind of give you all that information because it was innately designed to prevent that kind of access to information. But as these information systems get smarter, right, and become more integrated, it raises a really unique question. That what if these large language models, right, were held hostage by insurance companies, and then they limited the type of information that we had access to, or they had manipulated the kind of information that we could communicate? And this goes back to the very first part of what Dr. Manchikati said at the beginning, is that we actually need to advocate for safeguarding this type of technology as physicians, as clinicians, and as humans, right? Because we have to protect our healthcare information, and we need to make sure that it's not actually being driven by special interests. So it's a different topic, but it's something very valuable, and it's a really unique point in the transition of how we're going to acquire and access information. That who's actually holding that information, who's making that valid data point available to us, and who's manipulating it on the back end. And so it's a different topic, but I think it is something that we all need to keep in mind, because this topic is something that's going to be very sacred to our patient and to ourselves, right? Who's going to control what somebody else knows about us, and who's going to allow access to what pieces of information is available. And so I don't want to comment more on this because I think that's a separate topic, but it really helps us transition into the next part of our talk, which is on how do we actually use the physician avatar platform to improve patient communication, improve access to information, and to make sure that one of these things stay the same, right? In addition to that, we want to make sure that us as physicians remain in control of our avatar, of our likeness. So as you saw, in the talk earlier, that Dr. Sona and myself both used an avatar platform to communicate that. For the time being, right, all the physicians that are avatars are controlling their information. But how long does that actually remain the way it is? Those are all really big questions that need to be answered. And one of the companies that we're partnering with is OnDoc, who's driving the innovation in some of that technology. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to John, who can kind of talk about, what OnDoc is, what his journey was to kind of develop this platform, what the evolution of this technology is, and where it's headed in the future. And then we'll do a demonstration on how I personally actually created my own avatar and how simple that process is, so that we can make that type of technology available across the board almost instantaneously and improve our patient experience and education.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar today. Can you hear me okay and see the screen okay? Perfect. Okay. So my name is John. I'm the founder and CEO of OnDoc.ai. A little bit of background on me. I was a STEM rep for 8 years, worked in industry, and I saw probably the biggest issue in terms of being in clinics and being around physicians and working with patients directly was the patient education experience. A lot of these advanced interventions, especially in pain management, require a lot of education for patients to help them understand not only their disease state, but also what the treatments are and what the process is. Because a lot of these advanced procedures require a lot of hoops for patients to jump through. So the more that we can automate the education process and remove that from either your shoulders or from your APPs, I believe will help unlock efficiencies within the practice to then allow you to spend your time doing other things to grow your practice. So we do have a patient education library that has 70 education videos. Now, the education videos have been approved by ASIPP. Not sure why the image isn't showing up, but Dr. Manchikati showed it earlier. When you go and do the education, we basically have a few different options for personalization. We provide you QR codes that you can put into one-pagers and brochures. We give you embed codes for your website that you can embed. We give you tablets in the office, and then we give you the ability through some of our partner channels to integrate with your EMR and your EHR to do email and text campaigns for your patients. So I think what I'd like to do now is show you a brief demonstration of our actual technology itself. So what I'm going to do is hop here.
So while John's getting that ready, I'm going to kind of talk to you about, why I wanted to become an avatar. And I say this because, this is not something, people think of on a daily basis, but there was such a significant need in my clinic and the way we practice, right? All the patients, they really want to talk to their doctor. They want to have multiple touch points because we're doing, sometimes invasive procedures on them. And as more and more our technologies evolve and we transition from pain management, where we're writing prescriptions, to interventional pain doctors, and even potentially interventional spine and pain physicians, where we're doing these minimally invasive procedures and surgeries, it requires the physician to have more and more face time with their patients. And as quickly as our technology is advancing, right, we don't always have the time to go back and really explain everything fully in detail. And sometimes even when we're explaining things to patients in detail during that session, when they have in the clinic with us, when they get home, they're like, oh, their wife, their loved one asks, well, what actually happened? What's the next step? And often, our patients aren't able to explain that. So what I found is that, my patients were actually getting delayed care as a result of that. And I couldn't go to their house and explain this to them, or I couldn't wait till their second or third or fourth appointment when everybody was on the same page. And so what we started doing is actually creating these videos and sending them home with our patients so that it helped in the education process so that they could make a better shared decision with their family members, with their other specialists, with their primary care doctors who are their referral sources on what the best next steps were. And initially, we thought, well, this is going to be a very complicated process, but the platform that OnDoc has created has really streamlined everything. It's really as simple as just uploading a really good quality picture from your iPhone to their platform, doing a 2 to 3 minute video recording. And essentially, when you do that, the rest is history. Your avatar is given birth to, and you have 70 plus videos available to you on the platform, and you can tweak them. So that's, I think, what this video is going to walk you through.
Yep, so we're actually going to do this live together. So basically, once you log in, so this is Dr. Budwani's account. Once you log into the platform, you're going to, for the first time, you're going to get a message that asks you to upload your avatar and your voice sample. So you will log into your profile, and from here, you're going to see user likeness, right? So you'll come here and basically select your photo. So we have a headshot that Dr. Budwani provided. And then you're going to center yourself in the folder. And then we are going to save this. So now this asset should be sent, and perfect. So we have that. So now we are going to upload the audio sample. So we have that. And then we are going to save this. All right. So now our sample video is generating. Okay. So now while we're waiting for our sample video to generate, let's go ahead and hop over and show the rest of the platform. So this is pretty easy. Like I had mentioned, ASIPP has approved all close to 70 videos that we have available to you. So Dr. Budwani's already approved 59 of them. We'll check them out in a second, but let's go and see how you can actually go through the script approval process yourself, right? So you'll come through and you'll see these are all pending physician review, right? So for any of these videos that you want to add, and you don't have to add all the videos, but you can, you'll come and do a review. And basically, these are done for you. So these have been reviewed by Dr. Manchikante himself. So you can be assured that all of this information is medically accurate. So you can read through each one of the scripts. If you would like to make a change, you absolutely can, right? So, you would just type in a change and then press approve. It will say whatever you type. So make sure to have, really good grammar and spelling as you go through. Now, if you just want to have the library as the ASIPP default, you would just come down to the bottom and press approve all, and that will do it for you. And then you can press submit.
And so one thing, John, as I was going through the process, right, yesterday, approving these things because we had submitted the picture yesterday to do this, right? Like you can see that there's so many complex things that you can talk to your patients about and re-educate them on. So like kyphoplasties, I mean, that's a more detailed discussion, right? Or even BVN, right? Basal vertebral nerve ablation. Or the mild procedure, right? It's like all these advanced technologies and the tooling behind it can actually, lead to some fear in our patients. And so that requires multiple touch points. So whether I'm talking to them in the clinic or my APP is following up with them, they require additional information. And if they want to actually hear this again, then they have that information available in the form of you essentially educating them, whether it's in their home setting or whether they go to their surgeon and say, hey, this is what the doctor recommended, or whether they go back to their primary care doctor. And what I found in my practice is that this type of communication has significantly reduced patients saying, hey, one, I don't want these kind of procedures, or two, them actually delaying these kind of procedures. And so what our thought has been is that if you can actually provide these things sooner to the patient, hopefully you're reducing their disability or improving their quality of life and function sooner. And we found that, you can have this on simple things as, SI joint injections to more complex things as spinal cord stimulator trials and fusions. And so there's a variety of videos available. And like, John mentioned, that all of these videos can be tweaked based on the way you speak to the patient or based on what you want to add or subtract from the information that's already there.
Perfect. So before we check out the sample video, there's one other really nice feature I wanted to mention because Valet Health will be talking more specifically about how to use some of these videos, but Mainstay Medical is our first industry partner. About a year ago, they had made an investment to partner with us and create really great content for your patients. So by being a part of the OnDoc platform, you have availability to all of these videos. You can watch these videos as a sample, right? So basically, as we go through, these are templated videos that have really strong animations that help explain the procedure to the patient. And it will be in your likeness, as the physician. So you can go and watch these videos if you like them. All you have to do is come and press this button, add to library. Now, because this has been approved by the internal medical affairs team and it's all on-label messaging, we do not allow for any editing of this content, for any of our industry partners. But yeah, once you...
One thing, John, I wanted to add to this is, if you, anytime you're talking to patients about any of these advanced procedures and then you're handing them a brochure, right? Well, I mean, the brochure is generic. It's not personalized, right? So this is, again, a live brochure, right? Personalized as a physician communicating that to the patient. So again, it changes the way the patient experiences what their advanced care is going to look like. And I think that's a very, very important point because again, like we're offering more and more advanced technologies, having access to really good quality content that's provided by industry, that's vetted by their advisory board and their team, and then making sure that that's available and the physicians liked, and it's not a generic brochure that's sitting in your office makes a big difference. Secondly, the other thing that I want to really comment on is that what if something changed, right? There was a new FDA regulation that changed, or for now, all of a sudden, you got, MRI compatibility notification. Instantaneously, that change can be made without you having to actually redo a video or to redo your avatar. So if the industry makes that change, or if there's a change at the larger scientific level, right, it's automatically integrated into that platform. And so that's what it says, is that you're accurate every single time. Every day, if there's new information available, it's accurate. It's accurate and it's updated instantaneously.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect. So we see that our sample video is generated. So again, this was generated just with a photo and a 1-minute audio sample. So we will watch the sample video.
This is a sample of your AI-generated voice. To hear a different version of your voice, please delete your original voice sample and upload a new recording. This is a sample of your on-doc photo avatar. If you would like to try another photo, please delete this photo and upload a new one. We have included some helpful tips here for your photo upload. When you are happy with your AI-generated voice and on-doc avatar, click Confirm Likeness on your profile.
All right. So that's the photo likeness. So you'll confirm your likeness and confirm. And once you've confirmed your likeness, now all of your videos on the back end are basically going to auto-generate once you do your approvals, right? So let's go ahead and check out the library here. So this right here are all of the videos that Dr. Budwani has already generated. And we're running short on time, but I'll show a little clip of one just so you can see an example.
What is a herniated disc? A herniated disc occurs when the soft interior of a spinal disc pushes through a crack in its tough exterior, often causing nerve irritation. This condition is typically caused by age-related wear and tear, improper.
So as you can see, it's going to follow and sort of match what you type into the text. And the last thing I want to show is there is autoplay built in, and this is customizable. So you can sort of define the order of videos that you'd like for patients to watch. The idea is once they start with one video, they can sort of explore the entire treatment journey, and that's completely customizable by you. So you'll see that there's a
have the most productive conversation about your health.
Autoplay that pops up. So after herniated disc, it will go to epidural steroid injection next.
What is an epidural?
Okay. So I think what I'd like to do now is hop back here. And I'm sorry this isn't working. I don't know what happened to all my images, but basically we will be at ASIPP this year. We will have a private room set up to do all the filming with you. So we'll have a green screen set up. We do have a special price. Our normal price is $199 per month with a $1,000 avatar creation fee. We're going to waive that avatar creation fee, and it's going to be at $99 a month for ASIPP members. We'd love to have the entire ASIPP membership all on the platform, educating patients with their avatar, with approved ASIPP content and other AI tools. So ultimately, my goal is creating partnerships with other companies like the ones that are presenting later in this presentation of ways for you to use your avatar. So with that, I will stop sharing, and I appreciate all the time today. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention what a great opportunity this is for ASIPP members to be part of this AI revolution and be part of it early. It's very generous of OnDoc AI to establish this partnership with the society. I personally made my avatar at ASIPP in their room that they had at the annual meeting last year. It was a really easy process to do. I highly encourage everyone going to the annual meeting to do that. But also just taking the opportunity of the the steep discount and everything they're offering. I mean, it just could be something that you could integrate into your practice very rapidly when you see it. I mean, literally, once you make the avatar, like that's the bulk of the work, and everything else just kind of happens in the background. And so now, we have a panel discussion for the next 20 minutes to talk about what we just reviewed. And before we get into the panel, I do want to mention one thing, mostly about HIPAA compliance, because I wanted to provide a more definitive answer. I know we talked about a lot of things and theoretical things, but ultimately, what is the answer to the question of what are the HIPAA implications of entering patient information into a large language model? And I wanted to provide my perspective because the implications are huge. Especially if there's loss of data and you're responsible for that. And that could be very problematic for you. And as we're sort of learning in this process, you don't want to get stuck in the mud for something silly like this and end up getting in trouble if a patient gets very angry. So give me a second, buddy. So essentially there's 3 items that I want to mention in terms of, this is my opinion on what we need to do for HIPAA compliance. First of all, as John mentioned, hooking up or connecting with a service provider that has a HIPAA arrangement already for their LLMs is helpful, because that will take some of the burden off of you as a practitioner. It's a shared burden with the vendor, and I'm sure they have HIPAA agreements and HIPAA compliance already with their own business, so that you'll have something to point at if something happens. Secondly, if you choose to take this burden on your own, make sure that whatever you put into your LLM is de-identified. And that's actually a lot easier to do than you would think, but it takes a little bit of work. So for example, if you were ever to data mine your charts for research, if you're doing some sort of review or whatever, most electronic medical records, including mine, have the ability to change all the data to a format where it's de-identified in terms of patient name, and it switches it to a patient medical record number. And that's another way to get around it, to make sure that you've gone through the effort of de-identifying that specific patient. The third option I would think would be, as you do, informed consents, like, so let's say you do narcotic agreements and other agreements, as we move forward, it's possible we might be all having, HIPAA agreements specific to the use of artificial intelligence in your practice. I mean, you have no idea what you sign up for, what you agree to do when you click yes on the terms and agreements for anything, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever, and it says, everyone just scrolls all the way down, they click agree on the bottom, nobody reads it. But I mean, a lot of that does have a lot of fine print that protects that particular company. I would imagine some of that stuff might be happening to us as we move forward in this new AI world. And that's my personal opinion on the HIPAA compliance. Just want to make sure we provided an appropriate answer to that question. I want to shift gears a little bit for this panel and talk a little bit more about the physician avatar and the on-doc process. And I'll first ask John, can you tell me, if, let's say, you're a physician watching this for the first time, what would be the most efficient way for them to start using an avatar or learning more about it? Would it be to see you at the annual meeting, or is there something we could do before?
Yeah, certainly. So, the way we built our platform is to help physicians onboard quickly. So there are 2 steps of the platform, right? Number 1 is your avatar, and number 2 is your script approvals. And they're 2 kind of unique scenarios. So we do have 2 types of avatars. We have the photo avatar and we have the video avatars. I love the video avatars because they look and sound very, very real. There's a very specific way we need to capture them. So that's why ideally we would do it at the ASIPP meeting. Down the line, if you're not attending the ASIPP meeting, which I would highly encourage in Orlando, we can arrange, a trip where I come out and can visit you at your clinic. I've done that countless number of times over the last few months. If you want to get started today, immediately, we can get you signed up in the platform using your photo avatar. That way you can go through, do your script approvals, and generate all your videos. If later we have the opportunity to then capture your video avatar, whether it's at the conference or in person, we can always do that later with you. So if you want to get started, you can reach out to me, John, at ondoc.ai, and we can kind of walk you through the process of getting started. But definitely, if you want to be at the annual meeting, we'll have a room booked for 3 straight days, and we'll be filming all day, every day. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for in between lectures to pop in and get filmed. It only takes 5 to 10 minutes for us to capture the training data for your video avatar.
Great. And so my next question is for Ryan. Ryan, you have a lot of practical experience in the use of avatars, AI. Can you kind of walk me through some of the stuff that you found, some of the utilities that you found with it, and maybe some use cases that you think are are helpful for us to learn, like how practical is this? I mean, how much do you actually use it? I mean, sometimes we buy stuff, you know, patient education videos and all that, and just kind of rots there, you know. But if you sign up for this, like, how do you actually use it, and you know, how do you extract value from what you pay?
Absolutely. So for me, right, I mean, I use it almost, every single day. Essentially, anytime, I'm getting either a new patient coming in or a follow-up patient, right? And it depends because if a person's coming in, we kind of know why they're coming in. Are they coming in for shoulder pain, knee pain, low back pain? And so once, they've come in and the MA in our clinic has, worked them up while they're actually sitting in the room until I can actually get to that patient, right? We actually provide them with an iPad with the videos specifically curtailed to them, right? And the other part of this is that some of these videos are on autoplay, and so they actually go there and then the next video plays. So it's already putting some of this very accurate information in the idea of how we're going to manage their care. So we found that to be extremely helpful. The other way we've also managed this is that once the patient is leaving, we actually have in-house, brochures printed with QR codes for specific generated videos. So like, for example, John showed a video regarding Reactivate from Mainstay Medical. If a patient comes in and is determined that that's the right process and the right procedure for the patient, we actually provide that information for them with the QR code in the video so they can actually learn about that as well at home and share that with their loved ones. So I found it to be significantly valuable, even so much so that now, my patients are coming in, and if they're coming in and they've been referred from X, Y, and Z, right? X, Y, and Z physician, right? Whether it's a chiropractor or if there's, a surgeon or a primary care doctor in the community. And they're like, hey, doc, I've already watched the videos on your website. It was great. You talked about this thing, tell me more about it. So it's a great conversational piece, but I'm also seeing that the other way we can actually prescribe these videos for the patient is that when we're saying, when we're sending in a reminder for the patient, we can actually send in a link as a text message as well, where the video the physician pops up, introduces the patient to the practice, and then also gives you links to your in-house website where all these videos are based. And so I think there's multiple ways. I think you just need to streamline the way you're planning to actually provide that kind of access, right? So you actually have to be conscious of building this kind of system into place, but it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't really change the workflow. If you're not using iPads, that's okay. You can always, provide those kind of links or QR codes. And again, I think that as the EMRs begin to evolve, there's going to be more and more ways to actually integrate this directly into the patient charts so that they have access to it as well.
Yeah, I think introduction video to the practice might be really cool as you send out information so they get to know you, they get to hear your voice, they get to see you. I could see a lot of value in that in terms of enhancing that doctor-patient bond. But even like education, like if you wanted to do something more complex, like an SI fusion or a spacer or a spinal cord stimulator, I mean, just to have a video to introduce to the concept after they leave the office to say, oh, by the way, this is an educational video. The other thing is, I mean, even with compliance, I'm thinking about like one thing I go through a lot is interesting. No matter how many times I tell people about MPO status or I have a surgery center, like pre-op instructions, holding blood thinners, what medicines to take, how to handle your insulin, right? Because it's different if you have them MPO. Maybe to do a video to do that. I mean, what do you think about all that, Ryan?
Oh, I mean, 100%, man. So we have, videos in-house, but again, these are things we can also curtail to your style of practice. And that's why there's so many opportunities to edit those videos that the pre-op instructions shouldn't just be a printout, right? Or your nurse calling the patient the week or the day before reminding them of what needs to happen. It can be, you as the physician avatar actually educating them and showing them, this is what the prep looks like. If they need to actually clean a certain area or shower in a certain way, you can actually talk to them about that. The post-op instructions are the exact same thing, right? That you can also talk about, what does it look like? If you had put a spinal cord stimulator generator in, right? What to do and what not to do with that surgical site. So all of those things are there. And again, we're working slowly to kind of set that up so that, 24 hours after the video or after the surgery, the physician avatar video regarding that specific type of surgery for post-op instructions is sent. So now there's an additional touch point. One thing we're going to also talk about, at the ASIPP meeting is that once these videos are actually sent in, we're trying to set it up so that there's actually going to be a virtual chat box with that physician avatar. So that say, the patient's like, doc, noticing more bleeding than usual, or there's a little bit more post-op pain, and it's communicating, that patient's communicating with that physician avatar, and that's being relayed back to our MA team in clinic, and then that closes the loop so we can actually have somebody from our clinical practice reach out to them. So that's where the inherent opportunity is, because again, you don't want to lose patients that you do a procedure on or have questions to, and then they can't access you. And the beauty of the physician avatar system is that it's available 24/7, right? And I think that changes the experience for the patient. And one thing I really want to comment on is in areas, there's a lot of competition with other physicians or other providers. This is one way for the practice to distinguish themselves. One, you show that you are at the forefront of technology, but two, you're going out of your way to actually integrate this technology and provide access for your patients. So like a project that I'm working on with, Next Pain Management in Atlanta, right? It's an extremely saturated market. So one way we're distinguishing our practice is integrating the use of AI technology on day one for that patient experience. There's nobody else in that market that's currently doing it. So that's a huge advantage point for the patients, because they feel that, hey, this is more personalized care. This is a unique way. And it changes, I think, that dynamic. So again, one is improving access, but it's also making sure that you are actually getting the latest information available to our patients. So I think it's a wonderful question, but that's how I am integrating in my personal practice.
That's great. My next question is for John. So John, let's say I shoot my avatar and, I go to the annual meeting, I shoot it, and I look at it when it comes out, and I don't know, I don't like it. Maybe my clothes aren't good, or maybe my face needs some filters or something. I mean, so what do we do? What are our options, or do you have ways to tweak it, or what do you recommend in those scenarios?
Yeah, so I've created, close to 200 avatars now. I've filmed a lot of them. There's probably maybe some people on the call here who have filmed with me, right? I do our team has a very specific way of capturing this, and we do a lot of coaching to make sure that the training data is good. We've seen enough so that, when we do the video recording with you, we can have a high degree of certainty that we're going to get a good output. If you don't like your output, we have the photo option, right? And we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we'll come out and refilm you, right? I have some pretty unique ways of traveling. I've figured out some economical ways to get to physicians to keep costs down. But yeah, you want this to look real. You want it to feel real. You want your patients. And that's, for me, the core of our is likeness management, right? We want to be kind of the central hub for physicians where they can trust their likeness in the OnDoc platform. They know it's not going to be abused, and they know it's going to be high quality. And then they can use it in multiple different ways, right? So that, to answer your question, Dr. Soin, if you don't mind, I wanted to touch really briefly on the implementation as well. The next presenters are Valet Health with Dr. Ranson. And one of the challenges after launching this business and onboarding a bunch of physicians was exactly what you said, Dr. Soin, was, okay, I have this, I have it on my website, I have the QR codes. Now what do I do, right? How else can I use this? So I partnered with Valet Health, with Dave Bowen and Maddie Crescenzo, who will be presenting later. And they've been amazing. What they do is they have a partnership with all of their practices to run basically their marketing. And they're using these videos in automated campaigns through ICD-10 polls, and then basically getting these out to patients proactively to help with education. And so I think as you start to make investments in your practice in AI, you start to find there's going to be an ecosystem of how this stuff works together. And ultimately, that is what I think physicians should be very critical of as they start to evaluate different technologies is, how does this fit in my workflow? What is the overall burden on my staff? And by using this, does it allow me to allocate my staff to do other things to then create more efficiencies in my practice? My hope is that the avatar is kind of that gateway to then open up more opportunities for practices to explore different opportunities. And hopefully the rest of the presenters here will give you guys some ideas around that.
John, I love that comment. One thing as we transition, to the next part of this talk, the last thing I really want to comment on is, how real does this avatar look and feel, right? To date, I've not had one patient that said, hey, doc, that doesn't really look like you or sound like you. But the most critical people in my life, obviously, are going to be my wife and my kids. Amal has a 5-year-old running around the background right now. You show him your avatar and see, does it sound like you, right? Does it look like you? Like yesterday when we were working on this, and even this morning when we were taking the picture for the avatar for this presentation, my 5 or my 8-year-old was there with me, and he's like, hey, Dad, this sounds and looks just like you, right? Or when I was showing my wife, the presentation that we sent out and the pictures we posted on LinkedIn, again, the exact same thing. So the people that are the most critical in your life, right, of you and there to support you, and then your patients who you're working with every single day, or your incredible staff, if they can actually see the investment you're making to improve patient education outcomes, they're going to have, greater faith in what you're trying to do to change the community experience for patient care and interventional pain. One. Two is the likeness of the avatar is an investment in your practice and an investment in the outcomes of that patient. How real it sounds, the technology is so accurate at this point that if my loved ones can't tell, right, that that's me or not, I think that it's a game changer. I only wish that, if we were going to be in an argument with my wife or something, I could just send my avatar to do the talking and I wouldn't have to deal with it. I mean, maybe we'll get to that point at some point, but it's there, right? I mean, and I think that I love the fact that it's changed the way my patients experience the care that they're getting. And so I'm incredibly proud to, be with you guys on this journey to transform the way we're improving access for our patients. So I think with that step,
I do want to mention two quick things. I mean, I like the fact that it looks real, but I also like the fact that it's not too real. I mean, I can tell by looking at my avatar, it's not me. The blinking is different. It's a little bit odd. The facial expressions are a little bit odd because I get concerned about avatars being used nefariously. That whole, during the campaign primary in New Hampshire, that deep fake voice of Joe Biden was creepy because, I mean, everyone thought it was him and he sounded nuts. It really was some sort of AI generated avatar. I mean, I kind of worry about that with my NIL. But one more question I have before we switch is we have a huge Hispanic community where I practice. It's possible, as far as I understand, that this avatar can flip to different languages very rapidly and easily with those accents. Is that right, John?
Yeah, we actually do have the Spanish library for pain management built. We actually have a few physicians that are actively using it, for their Spanish speaking population. So yes, it's available, and it will sound like you are a native Spanish speaker. It is uncanny. So yeah, that's absolutely possible. I have gotten a lot of requests for other languages as well. So, I was just talking to a physician yesterday who wants to do Japanese. We'd have to build every additional language, right? But from a technical standpoint, AI is multilingual. It's data, right? Language for us is just how we understand each other, but to a computer, to a machine, it's just simply data and sound waves, right? And how you match those. So all of this is technically possible. It's just, is there demand, right? And obviously, growing as demand goes up. But no, Spanish is built and it's great.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. And to Ryan's point, I think you're right, Ryan. Dr. Badwani, it's time to move on, right? So we'll move on to the next speaker, automating education with empathy, AI solutions for pre and post care communication, Ballant Health. Dr. Matthew Ranson and Maddie Crescenzo. Oh, sorry. Was that? Yeah. That's what we have next, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. I saw a different slide up, but I got confused. All right, Maddie, we'll turn it over to you. I'm looking forward to your talk.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Sowen. And, really, first off, just very humbled to be able to present and participate in this discussion, co-presenting along with a good friend and a physician I respect tremendously, and Dr. Ranson. But also want to thank Dr. Manchikani, Dr. Sowen, Dr. Badwani for leadership and being at the vanguard of AI. And again, we just appreciate the opportunity to be able to share some thoughts and some insights with our section here. So, I think initially before we get into any of the specifics, we want to talk about a couple of use cases. We have to think about the patient journey. We have to think about the patient experience, right? And meeting them where they are, where devices and how patients are accessing information and content. Dr. Badwani spoke to really good examples of utilization of the physician avatars in clinic, right? QR codes, brochures on tablets. Now we're talking about engaging patients when they're not there at the clinic, right? So one of the challenges I think we've seen in working with physician practices, we've worked with interventional pain practices now for 14 years. I've personally been in digital for 19 years. But I think one of the challenges when we encounter and work with new practices is not having a way to systematically educate these patients digitally, right? So there may be some basic broadcast email communication capability to announce or make patients aware of a procedure. There's typically very limited tracking of effectiveness or of engagement. And so typically there are missing pieces and there are gaps in the patient engagement technology. One of the things we have learned that's been extremely effective is automated text messaging specific to building awareness and driving engagement for procedures. What we're going to look at in the one example with Dr. Ranson is what we did for his practice out in Arizona with the Reactivate procedure. And then messaging specifically to a subset of existing patients, right? So most of the times, you think about how do I get new procedure patients, more patients? What we're talking about here is engaging and messaging to an existing subset of your patient population to make them aware of advanced procedures. And so, typically just at a high level, email communication open rates are typically 20% in healthcare. We've seen text messaging open rates at 98%. There are studies that will show you extremely high open rates for texting. And as we think about the evolution of patient engagement, it's taking it from an approach that's a reactive, more static approach to being proactive, right? Thinking about the types of procedures you want to make your patients aware of. So not only they can self-select and say, okay, I think I may be a candidate of, for that particular procedure, but perhaps a family member or a loved one or a friend could be a candidate for the procedure. Being able to make them aware and engaging them on mobile devices is really key. The patient engagement platform that we have at Valet Health, right? This is built to be turnkey and pairs beautifully with OnDoc. And I'm again thankful, and this is very fitting that I'm presenting with Dr. Ranson, because Dr. Ranson is the one that made the introduction for us in Valet Health to OnDoc in John Ryu. So very grateful for that, because I could personally tell you in just years of doing this in digital and patient engagement, this is the most exciting thing we've seen advancement in technologies with the avatars and what this means for patient education, for access, as Dr. Budwani was speaking to. I mean, it's just next level stuff. So I really feel like it personalizes the patient journey. And then we'll talk about some of the things now. And I want to introduce you to Dr. Matt Ranson, again, a good friend, a physician I respect tremendously. He made the introduction for us with OnDoc. And the way that we got started, in this first use case was we did a code pull for Reactivate. We work with Mainstay Medical. We work with Dr. Ranson and his practice. We're able to send text message campaigns out a sequence that built visibility and drove traffic to campaign pages that had his avatar talking about the Reactivate procedure. Let me pause there, flip it over to Dr. Ranson to share his thoughts and experience with the avatars and as we talk about this particular Reactivate use case.
Thanks for the introduction, Maddie. Yeah, actually, it was sort of accidental that I stumbled onto all of this aspect of AI because I've been looking at it for 6 or 7 years to try and cut down on my workload with dictations. So I started beta testing. I guess it was probably about 2 years ago. I found an AI platform for dictation that was affordable, because prior to that, the ones I was looking at were just ridiculous, and they had a lot of bugs. So I started beta testing a dictation software that allows me to just talk to a patient and it generates a note, which you have to check. I mean, there are obviously some limitations to it, but it has significantly cut down on my dictation time. So that was my first intro to artificial intelligence. And then I met John Rowe with OnDoc, and I literally sat in there for two minutes, I think, and spoke or rehearsed a pre-written script. And I thought it was kind of dumb when I did it because it made absolutely no sense. And then from that, I was able to generate a lot of different videos with my avatar, which actually is pretty scary when you first see yourself saying things that you never said. You just write them down, and your avatar says exactly what the script you've written says. So that's how I kind of got into that, and then it's catapulted, because what I was looking for was a way to say talk about radiofrequency ablation or kyphoplasty or spinal cord stimulation or reactivate, all these advanced cases, minimally invasive spine surgery, and I didn't want to have to shoot all these different videos. So the avatar really streamlined that whole process for me to market not just to patients that I don't have yet, but also to my own patients. And that's the power of this. I think as physicians, we typically think about how do we drive more patients into our practice instead of capitalizing on the patient population that we already have. And that's where this AI software, AI engagement with patients and webinars is extremely powerful. So it just sort of morphed into what we've done, recently with Reactivate. I generated these avatars on lots of different things, and then I started talking to the folks at Mainstay, which were really excited about this technology. And I'm a KOL for Reactivate for Mainstay, and they got on board immediately, and they helped me, with your help, of course. We've been working together for almost a decade. Drive or do a code pull using artificial intelligence to send text messages through my EMR to all of my patients, advertising or letting them know that I was going to be talking about this new technology, this new procedure to treat low back pain. And I'm new at this as far as that, the code pool and the statistics, but from what you've told me, we did exceptionally well, way better, much better than we would have done using the tried and true email or the flyer method.
Right, right. And Dr. Ranson, I also wanted to play for the audience too, just maybe 10, 15 seconds of your avatar that we utilized in the text campaign for the webinar, but with talking about this procedure.
The Reactivate system is placed into your lower back during a small, same-day procedure that takes approximately 45 minutes. The procedure consists of using a needle to guide two small wires called leads to a location right next to your lower spine. These leads will be placed close to the small nerves that control the deep muscles.
So you all get the idea, right? Like this speaks to what Dr. Budwani and John were talking about, the level of quality education for a patient to have the right expectation going into before a procedure, right? What they can expect. Again, the level of quality of it, but the personalization with Dr. Ranson and them hearing the voice and seeing the physician, right? Their physician talking about procedure, about what they could expect. We feel like there's going to be significant improvements too as we look at pre and post procedure education. What the sequence that we initially built out in collaboration, again with Dr. Ranson, with Mainstay Medical and OnDoc, this was a 5-message text message sequence. So we deployed those text messages. We initially had a segmented patient list size of 500, right? So we looked at, Dr. Ranson reviewed with us and with Mainstay the ICD-10 codes, so the potential candidates. We're able to extract that data in working with his staff. And it was something where, again, this is minimal lift on Dr. Ranson's side for his staff. We brought it into our patient engagement platform, all HIPAA compliant. I know that was a key piece of the discussion. The software, the processes are all HIPAA compliant. And then we ensured that there was SMS, electronic text messages, consent prior to being able to do this. But yeah, Dr. Ranson, from what we were talking about before, we've typically seen, there's on average with email, you may see a 2.5% conversion rate based on overall list size with its email. With this as text message, we saw a 16.6% conversion rate. And even with that list size of 500, 83 webinar registrants as patients. I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind, and I know Dr. Ranson, we've spoken about this, is then thinking about this systematically, going quarterly back to your patients and different segments of your population, right? Talking about doing it with other advanced procedures. Then you also have things like low-hanging fruit, RFA campaigns, right? Like this is one of the things that we can send out and deploy campaigns, which we've done for our platform every 6 to 8 months, and integrate the avatar. So the fact that, Dr. Ranson, we have your avatar, being able to do RFAs and not only this one, but thinking about, I think if you could speak to, Dr. Ranson, thinking about relationships with industry, with manufacturers, device companies, could you help share some thoughts on that to guide physicians on centering it around events and being able to build visibility, messaging to their existing patients. What are your thoughts on that as you think about other procedures and how they should think about it as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and that's what we did with Mainstay. And I have partnerships with other companies that, say for instance, Intercept, is now Boston Scientific. When you introduce this to your patients, I think there's so many more patients that you already have in your practice that you may not see or your nurse practitioner seeing, and you may not be as fortunate as I am to have a nurse practitioner that understands the advanced procedures. So you can use this technology to reach them outside of your limited patient engagement in the office. So I would suggest that physicians start thinking about their already existing relationships with other companies, be it Abbott or Boston Scientific, whomever it may be, because these companies with very minimal expense can really help you drive webinars. I mean, I don't think it's very expensive to host a webinar. And these types of advanced level integrated products really can help educate patients. One, we all want to educate our patients about new procedures, but two, it really can help drive these patients into your office. And it may not be, maybe they see the Reactivate webinar, and maybe that's not really a procedure that's right for them, but you may have a lot of other procedures that you can talk to these patients about just because you captured them with your webinar.
Yes, that's exactly, Dr. Rance, exactly what we've seen too, in deployments as well, with other practices we work with, is messaging and engaging the patient population. They may come in and then ask about other types of procedures, maybe candidates for other procedures. And I think that's one thing that is missing with interventional pain practices, is a way to do that systematically, right? Going back to, again, patient subsets and identifying those patients. And again, it's a collaborative process, right? So as we look at patient identification, it's working with, the physician, having physician leadership, right? That would see the importance of an initiative like this, working along with a device company. And then, as Dr. Ranson said, any efforts they have in building visibility for a webinar. But then if you think of the other ingredients, having your on-doc avatar, which again personalizes that patient journey. Then the other ingredient is what we're talking about here with patient engagement, the ability to engage patients with HIPAA-compliant text messaging, meet them where they are, right? Engage them on mobile devices. So take it from an approach that's reactive to something that's proactive. And then being able to, there are plenty of other use cases for how we can be able to make use of the avatars, as we've done with the website, links from social media, there's links from physician profiles. But just wanted to point that out as well. And I think in summary, and then we'll open it up for questions, for any questions that you have for Dr. Anson or for me. Just as John and OnDoc mentioned, we'll be at ASIPP. Very excited to be able to make connections and meet you all. Any of you that are going to be there in person. You could also scan this QR code, and this shows a really nice, integration and workflow where you'll get a series of text messages spaced out. You'll see actually Dr. Budwani's avatar presenting about a procedure to be actually for the Reactivate procedure. And then that'll give you a chance to be able to see, hey, this is what a potential patient would see. So you could feel free to scan that QR code. And then lastly, just wanted to point out too, the same way that OnDoc has special ASIPP, pricing, the same thing with Valet Health. We're happy to provide flexibility and special discounts to ASIPP members, and other presenters that are coming on today, like Dr. Hubble, we've worked with a long time, and we appreciate having his avatar and be able to work with him as well, and leaders like Dr. Ranson, Dr. Hubble, and others as well. So Dr. Solon, I'll turn it over back to you to open it up to the group for any questions for Dr. Ranson.
Thank you. Yeah. And you know what? For me, I got to tell you, I do webinars all the time. And by all the time, I mean at least once a quarter to my patients. And driving engagement is always a thing. And I guess what I'd like to hear a little bit more about is that piece, and specifically the text message communication. I see here some statistics about a 98% open rate, 90% read in 3 minutes, etc. Can you guys walk me through that in terms of how me or anyone else that's out there watching this can maximize that text exchange, what that looks like, what the cost structure is. Is it like per text? Is it a subscription model, or what works best? Yeah, because that's something I think I probably want to integrate ASAP into my practice. I'm sure other people probably feel the same way after watching this talk.
Sure, sure. So the first part of your, appreciate you saying that, and it's first part of your question. I think the first thing to keep in mind is the text messages. If it's something like this example here with Reactivate, we already have this turnkey and built out. Dr. Ranson mentioned Intercept. We have turnkey campaign built for that as well, meaning the text messages are already built out in collaboration with physicians and with with medical device companies as well, and teams is there approving the messaging. So these are templated, types of campaigns you can plug in. The missing component really is having the data, right? Having your own patient data with the physician to provide permission for us to be able to utilize that. So the texts are already built. For the ones that aren't, let's say if there are other procedures that aren't in the on-doc library, or they're not in our library of text message campaigns, we're very much open to to feedback. We want feedback to be able to iterate and build new sequences, right? So that's the nice part, is like, it doesn't need to be more than a 4 or 5 message text sequence, but we'll do that part of collaborating to build messaging, to build the text campaigns, and also building the campaign landing pages, right? So we have to be able to drive them to these assets, where there's a specific call to action, where we have tracking on, do they fill out a request appointment? Do they call a call tracking number, right? Being able to understand that level of engagement. So the long and short of it is it's designed to be turnkey for procedures. We already have it built. It's ready to go. It just needs your patient data. And for the ones that aren't available yet, or haven't been built yet, we want that feedback, and we'll do so. Excited to work with you.
Maddie, I love, I love that presentation, Dr. Ranson. You did an awesome job. The question I actually have for you, Dr. Ranson, is and maybe Dr. Sowen, Maddie, you guys can comment on this. Where do you think are the barriers or the challenges, or what's restricting us from getting, other campaigns built? I mean, like, I guess the partnerships with, other industry partners, like Abbott or Medtronic, Boston Scientific, Nevro, right, for the stimulation piece, or for peripheral nerve stimulator opportunities there with like, Curonic, Sprint, and so forth, Nalu. And then beyond that, for the more advanced cases, like the fusions that we're doing, like with things like, Spinal Simplicity, or Spine, or KIC Ventures. And then, of course, the SI fusions and those kind of things. Like what is the barrier you think at this point, or what do you think we can do differently to form those engagements? Because the feedback that I get from my patients is they love hearing about, the technology, right? They like the way, either I explain it, or the injection-based videos, or the ones for Reactivate. Those are great. But when I'm trying to explain things for, SI fusion or lumbar decompression or other spinal cord stimulation, I literally don't have access to the information I need, because I don't have the integrative software available, or the integrative campaigns built from those companies. I don't know how else to explain like DRG therapy, because I don't have access to all the things that they've already built. So how do you think we can engage those organizations to reduce, or to actually create some level of linkages, so that we can improve access for our patients? Because handing them a brochure is great, but it's very like 2020 and not 2025. Right. How do we bring them up to speed, and how do we change that? Because patients are literally demanding this every single day, and all I'm being able to say is, oh, well, we don't have access to that yet, or we've not developed that. I mean, what do you think we can do, potentially, maybe, as an organization, or as a society, or as individual physicians, to kind of break down those barriers?
It's interesting you brought that up. It kind of read my mind. One of the things as a physician, and Dr. Redwani can speak to this, we're all worried about our time. And this took incredibly little time away from my practice as far as my input. I mean, I literally just thought about how we could start integrating these things. And like I mentioned before, it really was with OnDoc that I saw the key to really putting all these things together. Because even if you don't have a sophisticated integration with, say, Boston Scientific, or you don't have that kind of relationship with them, that software allows you to just type out whatever you want to talk about in the platform, and then your avatar just generates the video within a few hours. So I think that any physician can get into this, despite whether or not they have, you know, a lot of big relationships with some of the key players in these companies, it's really not necessary to get started. The time commitment as a physician is very little. You know, Maddie and my office manager worked together, and I was not very involved, to be honest, with a lot of this, other than doing the webinar and authorizing it. And, you know, Maddie and I would have a few discussions, but they did all the heavy lifting. So I think anyone, you know, I guess the bottom line is anyone can use this technology. You don't have to have, you know, relationships with Boston Scientific or Intercept or any of these other folks, Mainstay. You can start really small and you can still capture a lot of the patients. And, you know, the bottom line is I found that industry is incredibly supportive of this because this is a lot less expensive for them than generating all these brochures and having all these lunches and forums and so forth and what they do at society meetings. I think this getting all the physicians as a group in our industry to use this technology is going to drive a lot more patients than everything else they're doing.
Absolutely, man. And I think that's, you know, completely valid there. The one thing I'm going to comment on, right, is the Mainstay video, right? The graphics that are there, right? I mean, those are their in-house graphics and they look great. And it simplifies a complex way to explain that. And so while we can go in and, you know, modify some things, right? Like if you don't have a detailed video on how a posterior lateral arthrodesis procedure looks like and actually, you know, explain it. You don't want to essentially, you know, hijack a video off online and then, you know, create something behind that. Like you want to make sure that the content is approved by their in-house board of medical advisors. So it's on par with whatever the FDA has cleared for allowing us to speak on that behalf. And so I think like, I guess my question is like, what do you think we can do potentially as physicians or as societies to knock on the door of, you know, these larger industry partners and say, hey, you know, we really our patients are demanding this kind of education, our patients are demanding this level of quality information. And what do you think we can do to kind of help facilitate those partnerships?
I think we're going to need to start. The physicians are really going to are the ones who are going to have to lead this fight with our colleagues, and we're going to have to approach our contacts. Those of us who have those contacts in industry, you know, with KIC Ventures, Aurora, et cetera, and show them what we've done here with Mainstay, and show them the power of this technology. And I suspect they're going to be more than obliging to help us generate videos. It's really not that expensive for them to support this technology.
And I think too, you know, Dr. Would want to answer your question. I think even just being able to focus on some of the easy low-hanging fruit wins of getting patient engagement in place at a practice, right? So start with RFA, because if a physician has his or her avatar already with OnDoc, those sequences are already pre-built, right? And we can then again go back, pull data from the last 6 months, patients, like send that out, and then it gets to, as Dr. Ranson said, forging those relationships with other, you know, other manufacturers and in industry, and highly encouraged. And I think the pull comes from physicians of like, you know, we really want to see this procedure in the OnDoc library. I'd highly encourage physicians to do that. And then on our part for Valet Health, we're going to build the back end, it's systematically, we have the delivery mechanism for it, right? It's just now doing it for more of the advanced procedures and getting those built out. So, you know, and then I wanted to just one last thing, circle back to Dr. Soen, your question on pricing, at least for our part for Valley Health. Like, is it something like by text message? No, it's not by text message. It's just a flat fee for the patient engagement platform. It is a monthly flat fee of $400 for ASIPP members. That is not pricing we offer anywhere else. And if you actually look for HIPAA compliant types of software that does what we're offering here, I mean, and we don't charge by tiers as the database grows, and we do campaign systematically quarterly. So we want to, you know, you think even just being able to get RFA patients back in, being able to get more advanced procedures in as we build this out, the ROI on going back to existing patients is going to be significant. And that's our goal, right? We want to be able to improve this access to patients and help physicians get more visibility for their advanced procedures. So hopefully that answered the question for you.
Yeah, it did answer the question. And I think ROI is an important thing. So for example, I mean, if you just get one RFA patient a month from it, it kind of pays itself back. And I actually really very much look forward to seeing you at the annual meeting. And I think that for other physicians out there, I mean, it'd be good to check out their booth and stuff as well. And thank you for the time.
Yeah.
I'd like to switch gears to our next topic, from encounter to reimbursement, AI solutions for documentation and billing. We have Nate Hill and Bethany Iyer. Thanks, guys. I look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks so much for allowing us the opportunity to be here. We're really excited and blessed to be able to bring what we're doing. So here, let me share my screen really quick. As a quick introduction, I'm Nate. I am actually a physical therapist, and I'm joined by Bethany Ayer, and she lives in the Washington, D.C. area, and she is an occupational therapist. And so we're kind of adjacent to the internal to the pain management world. Worked really closely with a lot of really amazing doctors over the years, and we have since transitioned into roles with a company called Athelis, which is a healthcare technology company that specializes in the use of artificial intelligence to optimize the front and back end from the provider's perspective, and the back end administration and billing to really try to reduce the administrative burden for practices, maximize reimbursement, and provide similar technologies that the payers, that the insurance companies are using to start to try to crush and really increase the burden on providers, and providing the tools back, providing the resources back to the practices, to be able to fight fire with fire. So I'll hand it over to Bethany, and she can walk you through some of the stuff that we're doing here.
Awesome. And also, if you see a couple slides with Commure Athelis, we are under the larger umbrella of Commure. So I think it was mentioned earlier, people were talking about when you're looking for AI technology in a partnership, I think it's important to kind of do your research on how long that company's been around. We've been around since 2016. One of our first investors was Sam Altman from ChatGPT. So our large language models have been trained for a really long time, which I think is very important for providers and physicians. And so one of the biggest things that we've seen when we talk to practices all the time is just how can we help them navigate through the complexities that they're experiencing. And that can be from, whether it's political climate changes, if you're a provider or physician at an FQHC and you're trying to create better infrastructure, or if you're, just having payer policies impact you. And then also just that major payers are using AI all the time. They've embraced it for a while now. A lot of their large language models are quite dialed in. And it seems like, many healthcare providers and physicians are a little more skeptical on adapting or adopting AI. So greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some of the ways we're trying to help get good tech in the hands of physicians. This is just a quick, just some quick stats from us on that the average physician is spending, 4.5 hours on admin tasks, documentation, and charting. On average, they're taking almost 1.5 hours home, many more than that. And that this is just causing major burnout. This next slide might be a little redundant as well to that, but just that, between 61 and 63% of physicians are experiencing burnout. Documentation is often the leading cause of that. And, people are seeing high volumes of complex cases, and they're not necessarily able to devote the time and care that they need. And then in addition to that, we're seeing a lot of admin responsibilities. And even if you're a physician and you're not doing any of the billing side, you're likely having higher turnover in your admin staff or not really sure where you're going to outsource, your claims and your billing and whether or not you have good visibility into that process. And again, all of this kind of culminates to this really rapid high turnover. We see a lot of mass exodus of people leaving clinical care, which then puts an increased burden on those physicians like yourselves on this call who are still really trying to provide the best care that they can. And then one of the ways that we like to think about it is if you think of your clinical needs and you think of your physician and your provider needs, and how do we kind of bridge this gap? And if you think of that like a Venn diagram, that middle area is where I think technology can really come through. And Nate and I, we do this every day with providers and trying to peek under the hood of their practice, and everything is different for everyone. And so our goal is to really figure out where that middle part of the Venn diagram is for each physician and where it is for each practice, and how we can use technology to bridge that gap and create more efficiencies between the two.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important to call out that we have taken the approach of basically like our presentation is noted as, is seeing where through the care that's provided to the payment coming in, where through that process is it breaking down? Where is the burden on the providers to provide good care, but to then also document in a way that will maximize reimbursement on the back end? And why is that causing so many clinicians to burn out so regularly? And part of that is because everyone here got into healthcare to provide the care to the patients. The documentation piece is more of a burden on the back end. It's not something that anyone's really passionate about, and it's something that's really perfectly suited for technology to help with. And so our solution to the documentation piece is what we call ambient scribe. There's a lot of tools out there, a lot of really amazing companies that I'll just call out. There's lots of different tools that have come out either through EHRs or through third-party vendors like us. And we are going to kind of walk you through maybe if Dr. Budwani or Dr. Sohan or someone wants to help kind of do a mock scenario with us, a mock interaction with a patient, we'll open our tool here for you and be able to show you what it looks like, how it works. If you're not available, then we can kind of do it between the two of us. But I think it'd be fun if Dr. Budwani, if you could possibly help with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, I think when we were rehearsing this a couple weeks ago, and going through this, I think the best way I want to do it is, you walk the audience through what it's going to look like, and then I'm going to interject like as the physician, and then we can figure out, how best to curtail certain parts of it.
Okay. Sure. All right, Bethany, do you want to share your screen and show the tool? You can walk through that way. So the way that this technology works is we integrate with your existing system, and it pulls over your schedule into our platform, which is either an app on your phone or a Chrome extension that pops up over your EHR. It'll pull your schedule over so you can see your patients for the day. And then when you find your patient, let's say Jimmy Blake walked into the office or to the room with you, it'll provide, you can then basically tell it what kind of note it is. For this, we'll just use a default SOAP note. And then you would just hit start visit. And what it does is it's going to record the interaction between you and your patient, and then use AI on the back end to pull out the clinically pertinent information and write a note for you. So
perfect. Do you want to try to do a sample live so we can kind of show?
Yeah, I think we should. So I will be your patient. I'll come in with, it's a follow-up for some radiating right leg pain.
Perfect. So Bethany, how long have you been dealing with this since we talked last?
Yeah, it's gotten worse over the last week or so. Yeah.
Has anything changed in your activity? Have you been taking any medications?
No, I stopped taking the gabapentin, and I've just been using ibuprofen. But I've been having trouble. I've tried to run and I seem to tweak it a little bit.
Okay. And what seems to make it better? Is it just rest? I know you stopped taking the medication that was prescribed, but have you noticed anything that changes with any kind of action or motion or?
Yeah, if I sit too long, it's really bad. So I really have to just kind of stand up, and I get it, it radiates down my right leg at night.
Okay. And does it just go to like your growing area like it would for like an SI joint pain, or is it going all the way down to your foot?
Just it's going down to my foot lately.
And then I know we had sent you to physical therapy. How well did you do with that?
I did pretty well. I've been doing their exercises, the stretching. I've been going to PT about twice a week.
Okay. Well, I know since we've not had any updated imaging at this point, since we've tried all these conservative measures, why don't we try to get some imaging done for you? Okay. And based on what that tells us, we can try to think about doing injections like we had discussed previously.
Okay, thank you. Just curious, did you watch the national championship game the other day?
No, I've not had a chance to do that yet, but we'll catch up on that soon. I'm glad.
Um, I say that just because obviously you don't want to feel robotic with your patients. All of us are, physicians or providers of some kind, and you want to feel like you can be your authentic self and not feel robotic in your interactions. And so, just to piggyback off what Nate was saying, that, the ambient scribe will record the entire transcript for you, but it's only going to pick up what's clinically relevant and put that into your note. And so, on the beginning of the call, we talked about how this takes about 40 seconds. So I don't know if it's okay. We did. What was the name of the patient we did?
I think it was Jimmy Blake.
I'm gonna share. Hold on.
Maybe not.
Jimmy Blake. Okay. So obviously this is programmed. I'm not a 10-year-old male. We can change that out. Obviously, this wasn't programmed to my birthday, but we can say he has, radiating right leg pain. The pain worsened over time. He reports that he stopped taking gabapentin. Now he's using ibuprofen. I'm just reading this out because I know it's a little bit small, but feel free to read the screen. Jimmy has been attending physical therapy twice a week and has been compliant with exercises and stretching. The objective was blank because, you didn't talk about like a neuro exam or vital signs, but obviously if you had done like a more thorough assessment, we would have that here. I want to call out here as well that if you are doing an exam with a patient, and let's say you want to say like, their exam was normal, but you wanted it to populate in a chart where you're actually showing within normal limits, that's something that we can program on the back end specifically for each patient so that you can have your customized workflows within this template. So you don't have to go through everything like, neuro exam normal, this exam normal. The assessment was blank, but the plan, so it talks about the plan that, given the persistent current measures, are going to further evaluate. And then typically what it will do too is that if you prescribed a new medication, it would add this prescription here. You could tweak it. You can see the transcript as well, and it will play it for you. And then I can show you one from yesterday that we had done that was kind of similar to this. So you can see, we're going to do like a steroid injection. You can then go and have it, if you wanted to write an email summary or generate a referral thank you note, you could then say, if you were referred by a primary care doc and you wanted to say thank you for that referral, you can generate that. So within a matter of a minute, you've had your note, you have a referral thank you, you could generate an email summary to the patient. And this suite is very customizable based off of your templates and based off of your patient population. So I know that was a lot in a short amount of time, but
Perfect. I mean, I think we wanted to kind of streamline it just for demonstration, right?
yeah.
But what I want the audience to understand, right, that how much detailed it is, and the more you want to add to it, the more you really can. So if you go through a full 15 or 20 or 30-minute visit, and you have some of those patients that talk about everything, right? And like, Bethany talked about, well, that personalization part, like they're talking about their daughter's wedding and all that stuff. I mean, those tangents, right, aren't really included in the final note. So the AI is smart enough to actually intelligently follow all that and integrate that information. And furthermore, the more things you talk about, like, do they need behavioral health services? Do they need, nutritional health services, physical therapy, chiropractic care? All those things are being integrated. And then you talk about, well, what are the reflexes, right? Is that important? Do they have radiation of pain down other areas? It's able to pull that in and automatically document a lot of that. And so Where streamlined services is one, you don't have to go back and remember, hey, this is what the patient actually told me, this is what I'm doing, or have a scribe in the room actively assisting you. You can just go back and have somebody review this just to make sure everything is accurate, right? Because we talked about previously that accurate something is still going to need human supervision. But you're there 99% of the time with this kind of technology, and so it takes a lot of burden off your support staff and yourself, so you can actually go from room to room and accurately get the information that you need from the patient.
That's a great call out too, because everything here is obviously, you can edit any of it, and it's a very good call out to, say that at the end of the day, you're the clinician and you're the one that's making the most clinical judgment to this. Where it can get really helpful for people is that if you're going in between patients, let's say you're really busy and you have one patient and you're doing an assessment of them and then you're waiting for a result to go tell the other patient, you can pause through this and then go into your next patient. So that way, sometimes you're not losing a lot of pertinent clinical information to that patient, and you can go back to it later and see the transcript, or send that out as education to the patient after. So I'll stop sharing for the sake of time. One last thing I wanted to add, because someone brought it up earlier in the webinar, is that all of this is HIPAA compliant. So obviously we're not, utilizing this without HIPAA compliance. We do recommend that people just let their patients know that they're using it, but it's become quite common now as well. And we can create documentation within the ambient scribe so that during intake, you can have that be part of your intake process as well.
Thank you. That was just absolutely incredible. I actually employ scribes in my practice, and I can tell you, just the quality of what you got there automatically was just incredible. And I'm really excited to learn more and for me personally to see how I can actually integrate some of that into my practice. And I'm sure other people are feeling the same. Will you guys also be at our annual meeting in May?
Yeah, I believe we're in the process of arranging to be
great.
present there.
That's great, because then we can instruct some of our our physicians that they should maybe check this out, especially as this webinar gets distributed. But if not, we can always figure out other ways to communicate with our members. So feel free to let us know. It looks like there's a QR code down there, everybody. So
Yeah.
for some reason you don't connect with them at the annual meeting and you're watching this webinar, feel free to use that QR code, and you can actually schedule time with them, it looks like, through that. So that's another method as well.
Yeah, and we're happy to talk to anybody and work through like what is best for them. I think Nate and I very much value the clinical experience and wanting to make sure that something's going to work well for someone. So happy to talk to anybody.
Yeah, and I just really wanted to briefly call out that we use the scribe to feed into the revenue cycle side. So it will give some ICD-10 and CPT code recommendations, which then we have AI, large language model, and machine learning to be able to effectively do the revenue cycle from front to back. Which if that's something that you guys are interested in, also, there's some really unique things we're doing there too. But I'll hand it back over to you guys.
Yeah, that's almost a topic in and of itself, but I think a lot of people would be interested in that, especially on how to maximize reimbursement and coding, and particularly coding appropriately based on your documentation to help leverage procedure authorization as well. And yeah, perhaps we can discuss that in another time, another topic, but I do think that that's a great point, everyone, to consider when you're looking at FLS. So let's move on to the next topic, continuous care leveraging AI avatars for RTM, RPM patient engagement. Dr. Paul Hubble, who literally needs no introduction, I'm sure, to everyone here, very well known and respected pain physician for quite some time, and actually a personal friend of mine as well, and Evan Harmon as well. I'll turn it over to you both, and thank you.
So I hate to disappoint, but I'm going to lead the first part and then pass it on to Dr. Hubble and Evan for the panel. My name is Steven. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sarah Health. We've been working with musculoskeletal practitioners since 2018 to help them connect with their patients in between visits, and very excited to talk about how AI is enhancing the clinical care that you can deliver in between visits. So what we're going to talk about is remote therapeutic monitoring. Some of you may have heard of these codes, some of you haven't. Either way, I hope to be able to level up your knowledge at least a couple points. What does a successful remote program look like? and then getting into hearing from Dr. Hubble and Evan Harmon on actually people that are using it, like what's working, what's not, how would they advise groups to think about running a remote program in their practice. So I feel like a lot of people try to make these codes really, really complicated, and I just want to simplify it. They came out in January of 2022, and it is money reimbursement for technology and or time with patients in between visits. If you understand that as the core tenet and focus of these codes, you actually understand it, I think, a lot better than most that try to make it very complicated. So money for technology and or your time spent with patients in between visits. And the specific codes that you would use in case you want to do a deep dive in some further education are 98975, 98977, 98980, and 98981. We've created our own nomenclature for them to help make it even simpler for folks. So the connect code is if you, as the MD and PPA, educate the patient on this platform. So just tell them, and then they simply do not opt out for 16 days. Check. You're able to bill for this code. Pretty simple, pretty lightweight, and why the reimbursement also is typically the lowest. The engage code, or 98977, is whenever a patient replies 16 days in a 30-day period. So I don't know how CMS came up with this. It almost seems like they're like, more than half, right? Because 16 is just one more than half of 15, which is half of 30. And so if a patient replies or engages more than half the time, check, you're able to bill for this code, and you're able to do it every single 30-day period that the patient engages at that level. That is purely technology. It requires none of your time, your staff's time. There is no time requirement to be able to achieve those two codes. And then the support codes, as we call them, are 98980 and 98981. 98980 is the first 20 minutes each calendar month, and then 98981 is each subsequent 20-minute chunk. You do need to have a synchronous interaction with the patient in order to be able to bill this, and that's typically going to be done via a phone call, which can be completed by either you as the physician or any of your clinical team, including your nurses, whether that's in-house or outsourced, which we will get to when we get to the panel. Some of you have probably heard of RPM, so remote physiologic monitoring. Pretty big differences between the two. So one is that RTM, or remote therapeutic monitoring, does not require a hardware device. It requires a software as a medical device, which Sarah Health is, but not a hardware device. So that is a key difference. And as part of that, the data can be self-reported. So it's really looking for therapy and intervention adherence, and really how things are going, right? Like, hey, we tried switching your medication. Are you seeing relief from that? Or, hey, we're thinking about this type of intervention. Are you worried about anything pre-op? Like those things, those pieces of self-reported data count and can be billed for. The one area where they are extremely similar, if you've looked into RPM, is the timing. So the 20 minutes, I mean, that's basically copy paste across RTM and RPM. Question we get a lot is RTM sticking around? So actually, not only looks like it's sticking around, but it's getting expanded. So having a patient engage 16 days in a 30-day period, it is a lot. It's a lot. And it's not applicable. That level of intensity is not applicable for every single patient. And CMS has recognized that, and the AMA has recognized that. And we are likely to see one new code next year, which will be for basically 2 to 15 days of data exchange. So much lower type of level of engagement required. And also there will be another code for less time. So instead of requiring 20 minutes to hit that initial threshold, there's going to be a code for 10 minutes. So not only is it sticking around, it's expanding. And so thinking of how to succeed with a remote program, and I'm going to go through this quickly because Dr. Hubble and Evan will be able to describe it way better than I do. Set your why. Why are you doing this? Look for a partner, not a vendor. Once you get it implemented, ensure your patients understand the value of the program, and then measure, improve, measure, improve. And I want to show a quick example of the way to use an avatar to be able to talk to your patients about the value of the program.
Your pain as part of our commitment to the
So I'm just going to give a very quick overview of this going to your patients either in the waiting room or as an initial message out to them via our platform would be a great idea to be able to do that. And with that, I want to transition to, I'm going to start with you, Dr. Hubble. I'm happy to let you just go and talk about your experience, but I think it'd be nice to hear like what are some of the clinical interactions or data points or what are your patients telling you that are allowing you to see some success in your program?
Well, interesting. The questions that are sent out are generic at first, but the questions that the answers to those questions by the patient many times leads you to submitting an avatar that you've already recorded to answer the question. It also expands the amount of procedures that you might do because patients don't always get everything out to you when they're at the visit. They maybe understand sometimes a half or a third of what you've said. And they go away and the questions they ask after they come back with this Sarah Health product is it shows us that they didn't really understand what we were saying or need more education about what we're saying. And so I think as was spoken about earlier, it eliminates maybe a visit or two before you get to do a procedure to help the patient. It may help in medication management as well. You find out that there's a problem with medication, and rather than seeing a patient every 2 months and finding out that they haven't been using the medicine for 2 months, you find out right away and you can make a change. I think I got to be frank, we just completed our first 30 days of recording and submitted the bill. So I can't tell you how that part works yet, but we uncovered a little problem with men, especially older men. I don't guess they like the text too much. So we have to maybe, it's kind of like boys and reading early on. The text that they were reading was focused more on girls, and so boys didn't read. So we're working with you guys to try to change the narrative to get to the men to answer. But having said that, we still got quite a few more people participating than we anticipated in the first month. We kind of hit maybe said, let's try 30 people. Well, I think we wound up with 60 people. And so it went over a little better than I thought. I think there's a lot of room for improvement with the AI. I think interfacing what we've talked about today more in the system, and that's just a learning curve, would help people to get even more education, which improves the healthcare quicker, maybe uses less medicine over time, and it makes the doctor's time more properly used. I will say that my APPs I have 2 PAs that are looking at these questions daily, and that does take some time to do. And I think what we'll be able to do over time is use the artificial intelligence to answer those questions that they're now answering. When the PAs when they do call a patient about a question that they've received, they do click on to the system, and it is counted as time spent with the patient. So that helps to get to that 20-minute time period. It also helps because the patient's getting a prompt response to a specific question. And many times, they may leave a message and it may not be able to get back to them for a day or two. Now it's on the spot within a few hours, that answer is usually given to them. So all in all, I think we're at the infancy, we're growing. And I think as we incorporate more of the artificial intelligence and avatar answer to specific questions, it's going to be more robust. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to force us to develop some narrative to create more avatars in response to normal questions. So in the long run, if we could have the system look at a question and automatically pull the answer that we've already recorded with an avatar, it'll be perfect.
I am so excited to talk about the roadmap and what's on for a couple of those points. And Dr. Hubble, I appreciate that. I'm not a clinician, right? I'm a frustrated patient, which is why I started the company. And what you're talking about, right? The white coat syndrome of when I walk into a doctor's office, the likelihood that I'm going to give you all the information you need in a short amount of time that allow and understand even half of what's happening is so low, right? And so being able to continue that drip of knowledge and being able to answer questions in a way that's asynchronous, you're already seeing the value, and I appreciate you talking about it. And you're breaking this paradigm, right? Which right now, as a patient, I think I only get care if I'm in the clinic, right? And what you're showing is that you're breaking that paradigm. It's like, no, we at Southern Pain, we deliver care between visits and by using technology to do so. So I appreciate that very much. And I want to pass it to Evan at Resolve. And so they're using Sarah across at least 10 clinic locations. I can't remember now, and do have a different structure than Dr. Hubble in that they use an outside nurse team to be able to manage their patient volume. And so, Evan, would love for you to give a quick introduction and then talk about how you've both had success and challenges in scaling your Connect program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As Stephen indicated, I'm with Resolve Pain Solutions, and we own practices across the South. We're in the process of, engaging new partners and acquiring new practices to join the Resolve group. And so we do have practices in a number of markets across the Southeast, and we are doing this at scale. I think currently we're still in a significant enrollment ramp. We have a couple of practices. I'm actually going to Georgia tomorrow to get a new practice launched out in Augusta, and we have some practices in Louisiana that we need to get fully up. I think we have 4 additional. So we're about there in terms of getting where we want to be, but we are in what we call an enrollment ramp where we're enrolling a lot of patients, and we're monitoring about 2,000 patients right now. So if you can imagine having the high volume of scalability, we need additional support. We can't rely on the clinic to take all of that on. And so that being said, the way we utilize that is when we enroll patients on site, then a virtual nurse does get paired with them. And that nurse is taking away things from the clinic that they would be having to do. So taking away some of those tasks that Dr. Hubble mentioned, medication management. A lot of times we don't have time if there's a drug shortage. We can't call the pharmacy and coordinate all of that and figure all of that out for that patient. So leveraging our Connect nurse call center to be able to address that has really helped. That med coordination. Really, there's a lot of different things that we're offering that we probably wouldn't have been able to even do for our patients without the Sarah platform, without the virtual nurse pulled in. So we're addressing things like general pain management questions. We're addressing all the things that come with med management, whether it's that reconciliation of meds or just general inquiries about their medications, types of questions that they're getting, coordinating with physicians and pharmacists to adjust dosage regimens if prescribed dose is not available, cardiology clearances for procedures. So we're using this with procedures as well. Just general patient communication. A lot of times you got patients communicating in a lot of different ways with you, whether they're calling the clinic or they're messaging through your EHR portal. So being able to take some of those things on and really trying to push them, don't use the portal anymore. Let's leverage our functionality through direct text messaging to our nurses. And it has really improved the speed at which we're able to address patient concerns and questions that they might have in between their visits. Once again, being able to offer additional care and services, and then really being able to make sure that we're staying connected with them in between those visits. If we've ordered an MRI or CT or some type of outside testing, being able to follow that through in real time, making sure that patient gets that scheduled so that when they come back for their next visit, that we have already gotten that test completed, that we're not reminding them again, hey, get this done. We're not going to be able to continue care plan development or care plan adjustments without this information. This is really critical to your care. So it's helping patients understand the criticality and the need to have these tests done, and really the why, and that delays in that could really slow things down. So as Stephen indicated, there's been lots of lessons that we've learned along the way. We've launched this program back in August, and it's been very successful, but we've had to pivot a few different times. So some things that we've done to help pivot is, as you indicated, Dr. Hubble, really looking at who's responding to messages and maybe changing some of that up to accommodate patients, whether it's message frequency or whether it's how we structure or tailor our messages. We went through several rewrites and relooks there to ensure that our patients are going to be happy with those responses. Additionally, being able to understand that we need other types of programs to support the patient as well, not just remote therapeutic monitoring, but we also do something that I know Stephen kind of calls the M code. So we do principal care management as well to support our patients, where the patients do have the option to text through the Sarah platform, but we're also engaging with that patient more over the phone. And the patient's messaging us just when they need something, as opposed to the alternative where we're trying to be a little bit more proactive in sending them messages to engage them and keep the conversations going. So we found that pivoting patients after a few months of being on RTM sometimes is a good thing to keep them continuously engaged. They know how it works at that point. They've seen the automated messages coming in, so now they know what it's going to be like to get messages that are not so automated, that are more bespoke to them. So that's where I'll kind of end things at this point, and happy to answer any additional questions.
And keeping to time, thank you, Dr. Hubble.
Yep.
Thank you, Evan. So just a quick, so what is the patient experience? Maddie and Dave at Valley Health, we are kindred spirits in that we love and see the opportunity for SMS text messages. So that is the patient experience, is they feel like they are texting you. And that's the idea, right? Is to create that more intimate type of relationship. So where Valet ends, Sarah starts. And so we're thinking of us more of the clinical communication, with Valet being on typically the front or back end of where Sarah goes. And we've got AI already in a couple of different spots. So the company with more rolling out. And I've heard personalized medicine and personalized care. I really like that. The way that we think about that is contextualized care, right? So having the patient self-report what their own context is, and then using that in their care. So a slightly different take on it. We will be at ASIPP, and if I remember correctly, and hopefully Maddie and John don't get mad if I call it this, I think we're in like the cool corner. So I believe there's like all three of us like right next to each other. Hopefully they don't mind, I just named it that. But if you want to talk before then, please feel free to send Tom, our head of sales, an email, tom@sarahealth.com, or scan the QR code to learn more. But if not, we look forward to seeing you in sunny Orlando here in about a month. So with that, I will stop sharing and pass it back.
Guys, that was an excellent presentation. I think it really integrates all the technologies we've been talking about today. And at the end of the day, I think it just improves access and communication for our patients. So I'm really interested in, how this all plays well together, especially at the really end when we do our panel discussion. Now, without, waiting any further, I wanted to introduce our next panel, or our next topic, which was going to be on the use of virtual reality and physician education and the integration of technology in a really immersive experience. A couple things, about Immertech. I had the pleasure to actually work alongside them, learning some of the advances in our technology, especially during COVID, when they provided this really neat VR headset. It was the Facebook headset you could actually put on. And you felt like you were looking through the eyes of the surgeon, really, working and operating as they would. And so it really helped to understand the tools for some of these advanced procedures. And Jordan has really been a key member of that organization in developing and mentoring that technology. And so today we're really lucky to have him on board to talk about, how can we use this technology to help, improve access to actually the education portion for our physicians. Because, long ago we, identified that educating interventional pain doctors has been a challenge, especially as technology is improving and changing, and the integration of different type of procedures. And so there's always talk about do interventional pain physicians need additional certification and additional training, and especially like minimally invasive spine surgery, right, or minimally invasive procedures, and how does that look like? So I think this is one type of answer to that question, in terms of getting our physicians educated, and it kind of expands beyond a lot of different things, and potentially even can be tied back to the board that ASIPP offers in terms of training. So with that, Jordan, if you want to take it away.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to participate in this forum. So I just want to thank ASIPP, Dr. Manchikanti, Dr. Budwani, and Dr. Soin for letting me participate. And thank you all for being here. My name is Jordan, as Dr. Budwani just mentioned. I'm with Immertech, and we're reimagining how medical professionals learn, teach, and connect with one another, especially inside the operating room. I spent the last 4.5 years at Immertech working directly with physicians, medical device companies, and healthcare organizations to kind of rethink how we deliver procedural training and accelerate the adoption of innovation in medicine. More broadly, I bring over kind of 18 years of experience in tech, simulation software, and immersive technology. And throughout my career, I've focused on building impactful, user-centered solutions that have real impact on people. In this case, that means building tools that help expert physicians share their knowledge, help device companies scale innovation, and help the next generation of physicians prepare for the future. So if you're in pain medicine, you know that access to the OR is essential, whether that's learning advanced neuromodulation techniques, refining image-guided injection workflows, or mentoring the next wave of specialists. But traditional observation models are limited. Time is limited, travel is disrupted, and that's the gap that we're trying to close here at Immertech. So before I go and kind of tell you more about what we do, I want to actually show you. So I put together a short video clip that offers a visual overview of our platform, our immersive experience, and what we bring to medical education. So let's go and play that for you here.
At Immertech, our mission is to enable every doctor to learn from a live clinical setting without travel. We offer a platform that allows doctors to train in a live clinical setting and engage in immersive peer-to-peer collaboration from their home or office. Medical device companies invite doctors to register for training events on Immertech's portal. At the time of the event, attendees are immersed into a live clinical setting from their remote location. Immertech's training and awareness platform provides more interaction and engagement by enabling live commentary, conference capabilities for up to 100 plus attendees, annotation capabilities, and interactive medical views. Whether for large webinars, small meetups, or one-on-one training sessions, Immertech revolutions the way medical professionals collaborate and train.
So hopefully the video played well for you guys there, but there you can get a quick glimpse of kind of what we're building here at Immertech, right? So this is just a quick intro. We started in 2017, not inside a hospital or a medical lab, but as a tech startup, focused on solving a long-standing problem in healthcare, which is limited access to real-time procedural learning. And from the very beginning, we saw that virtual reality wasn't just a novelty that was coming up in the tech world, but it was a powerful tool to scrub into the operating room in a fully immersive way. Not just seeing it, not just hearing it, but feeling like you're truly in the room, shoulder to shoulder with the physician, experience the case as it unfolds, seeing a physician perform the procedure, seeing the feeds from the medical equipment, seeing different camera angles. You have everything that's important to you right in front of you. In traditional training, you're either there or not. So with Immertech, we kind of want to remove that constraint. Now physicians, fellows, and key opinion leaders can observe procedures from anywhere in the world with clarity, context, and direct communication. So today we work primarily with medical device companies, and you see some of the logos in here, and healthcare organizations to help them bring new innovation to the market, scale education, and improve patient care ultimately. This goes from product launches to physician onboarding, rep training. We enable teams to connect more efficiently, train more effectively, and drive faster adoption. Whether that's a new, novel neuromodulation device, a new approach to RFA, or an emerging injectable therapy, our goal is simple. We want to make world-class procedural learning more accessible so that innovation moves faster and reaches more patients. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into why immersive technologies, right? Why VR headset? And I have one in here that I'll show. It's typical from what we put in here, right? Immersive technologies like the ones we use here at Immertech are a very powerful tool for education. At a basic level, this technologies allows you to kind of place a learner inside an educational experience. That means instead of passively watching a video, flipping through a deck, you're really actively engaged watching the procedure. You're watching the doctor's hands, you're following instrument movements, you're listening to real-time commentary, and thinking through the decisions alongside the expert. So we've offered two formats at Immertech. One is the virtual reality, as I mentioned. This is really the most immersive and high impact way to learn. When you put on a VR headset, the user is really placed inside of the operating room. They're able to look around, focus on key areas, and block out all outside distractions, which is very important because this level of attention, retention, and engagement is really unmatched. Now, on the other hand, we also understand that not everyone has a headset or they might not feel ready for one yet. So we also introduce what we call Immertech's Immersive 2D offering, which brings the same kind of multi-angle video, expert narration, and real-time learning experience right to a laptop or desktop, as you see in the image displayed here. It's also a fully interactive environment. It's just without the goggles. It's designed to be as accessible as possible without sacrificing quality. Now, the important thing is both formats really put the learner in the middle of the procedure. We really give you a front row seat. And both have shown to create stronger educational outcomes. And this is backed by studies. So there's been research from institutions like Stanford, Imperial College London that show that virtual reality learning can actually retain up to 30% more information. The users perform better in procedural recall, and they report greater confidence levels compared to traditional formats. And there's a real reason for that. When you're in an immersive environment, your brain isn't just observing, it's actually experiencing. And so when you combine that with the freedom from distractions that we have nowadays from everywhere, the ability to pause, repeat, focus, you create a kind of learning that's sticky, memorable, and scalable. Whether you're a physician trying to learn a new technique, a rep understanding a product's application, or a medical student observing a procedure for the first time, immersion really drives deeper engagement, better focus, and ultimately better outcomes, which is what we're looking at. And that's why we're so passionate about making immersive technology available in these two formats that we mentioned. Because when we remove those barriers of entry and provide flexible ways to engage, we really create opportunities for everybody to learn, no matter where you are, what equipment you have access to. Now, let's take a deeper look at what we mean when we say removing barriers to the OR. Cost, and it's really at the core of what Immertech's trying to do. Access to surgical or procedural observation has always been kind of like a privilege, one that comes with logistical, institutional, or even personal obstacles. in the right hospital at the right time with the right permissions. And even if you're lucky enough to be there in person, you might not get the right angle. You might be with 5 people around a table, or you might only catch a specific portion of the procedure. Right? But more than that, we're talking about real life challenges that physicians face every day. So especially post-training. I've personally spoken with countless physicians who told me the same thing. I want to keep learning, but I don't have the flexibility that I used to, right? Or I don't want to leave my family. I don't want to leave my practice for a few days. One physician I talked to who was a mom at the time of her residency, she said that she actually had a baby around that time, and then she couldn't get to the OR as often. And after starting her own practice, taking time away for training became almost impossible. And when she saw this technology, she was amazed, and she said, I would have benefited so much from having this at my time at residency. So her story isn't unique, right? Many practicing physicians are raising families, running busy clinics, handling administrative burdens, working in rural settings, etc. We've heard it from all the speakers here, right? Dr. Budwani mentioned time is your greatest resource, the one thing you like the most of, and that's really what all of us in this call are trying to help make things more efficient, help you get the most out of your time, right? So, physicians are dedicated professionals who want to grow, they want to stay sharp, want to get the best care, but we're stuck with an outdated training model that requires to hit pause on everything just because you need to be physically present. And that's really the barrier that we're talking about, a big barrier that we're trying to basically remove. And so Immertech does change that by making surgical procedural observation flexible, accessible, and repeatable. Right? So with our platform, you can scrub into any case from your home, from your office, in between patients. You don't need to travel. You don't need to take time away from the people and responsibilities that really matter the most to you. And when you remove that barrier, not just for one physician, but at scale, you really start to democratize access to knowledge. You give people the freedom to learn without compromise. And the ripple effect is huge, right? It's better trained physicians, it's more collaboration, it's faster adoption of new techniques, and ultimately better care for patients, which is what we really all care about the most. Now here, I want to talk a little bit more. Okay, we talked about the benefits of immersion, what we do in terms of removing barriers to the operating room. Now, who actually benefits, right? And there's 3 key groups here: experienced physicians, which are the educators, the key opinion leaders, the thought leaders, many of you here, many of the ones that are setting up this webinar here. We also have residents and fellows. That's the next generation of practitioners, and the patients, who are the people at the center of everything that we do, right? So let me go into more detail for each one of these ones. So starting with experienced physicians, right? These are the experts, mentors, key opinion leaders who drive much of the innovation and education within medicine today. They're the people who have honed their craft over the years, decades. They've seen hundreds, sometimes thousands of cases. They build reputations as trusted educators and pioneers in their specialty. Well, here's the challenge, right? No matter how skilled or experienced you are, your reach is limited by time and geography. You can only teach so many people in person. You can only scrub in with a few learners at a time. That means a lot of your insights never leave your practice. So this is where we come in, where Immertech comes in. Our technology empowers key opinion leaders and expert physicians to extend their reach, to share that knowledge about their procedures, to share their thought processes, to share their teaching moments with a much broader audience without adding more hours to their day. We've seen physicians host immersive sessions in our platform from their own operating rooms, broadcasting to live audiences, or using a recorded procedure to 50, 100, even 200 remote learners at a time. And with full interactivity, with direct voice communication, and with the ability to pause and explain exactly what's happening and why. So here's, the key point. This is also why we, or one of the main reasons why we work so closely with medical device companies, as I mentioned earlier before, because these companies are introducing new innovations, new techniques or tools into the market and their biggest challenge is physician education and adoption. They rely on the key opinion leaders to demonstrate, validate, and teach these new approaches. But doing that at scale, it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard with traditional models. And we solve that problem at Immertech. We give expert physicians the tools that they need to educate others, not just efficiently, but in a way that feels real, that is interactive, and that is deeply valuable. And that accelerates everything. It accelerates awareness, trust, and adoption. So whether it's introducing a new neuromodulation device here, or demonstrating advanced technique for the DRG stimulation, or showcasing updated workflows for procedures like SI joint injections or spinal cord stimulations, we help expert pain physicians amplify their voice and their impact while staying grounded in their day-to-day practice. That's for experienced physicians, but residents and fellows are next. They're really the future of pain medicine. Training in this specialty is incredibly rewarding, but it's also very challenging. Right? Pain procedures can be very nuanced. They require both technical precision and deep anatomical knowledge. There's often very little room for error, and there's a significant difference between knowing a procedure and being ready to perform it confidently. And while every training program tries to expose its learners to a wide range of techniques, the reality is that case volumes, site locations, and attending availability can vary greatly. So a fellow might get a chance to see a cervical epidural under fluoroscopy, but what happens when they miss a week of high volume cases due to rotation changes, or they need to travel, or they have scheduling conflicts, and they miss out on that learning opportunity? It's gone. Or it's probably even worse for more advanced procedures like spinal cord stimulation trials, or DRG lead placements, or interspinal spacers. These don't happen every day, and when they do, there's no guarantee that you'll be on the schedule or in the room. So that's where we step in. We provide reliable, repeatable access to immersive case content so that residents and fellows can observe the most common procedures and the most complex ones on demand, whenever they want, at their own time, at their own pace, from their own home, from their own location. And they can pause, rewind, rewatch the placement of a lead. They can zoom in on needle positioning. They can hear how the physician explains navigation, see it from 4 different camera angles, all while sitting at their desk, at their lab, or at home. So it's not just passive viewing. Right? With live sessions, they also get annotated replays. They can ask questions in real time, explore the rationale behind the decisions that happen during a case, right? So all of those very, very, very relevant. I've spoken with few residents before. One that used our program via medical advice mentioned that they saw a DRG placement through Immertech before they ever saw one in person. And when they finally got in the room, they said that it didn't feel unfamiliar to them. They already had at least a mental model to work from. And that's the kind of preparation that builds confidence and competency that we're trying to tackle, right? And immersive tools are not just helpful for initial exposure, like in this case, but they're also powerful as reinforcement. So if you're preparing for a board exam or want to revisit a specific technique before you assist on a live case, you would want to have a library that's there for you, that gives you real exposure to that procedure. So we believe this kind of access levels the playing field. It helps standardize exposure across programs. It makes procedural allocation more equitable. And most importantly, it helps young physicians grow faster, safer, and with more clarity. And then there's the last piece of the puzzle, right? Patients. At the end of the day, all of this innovation, all of this training leads to one thing, which is better outcomes for patients. That's the real impact that we're all trying to have. When physicians are more prepared, when they're staying current with their latest procedures, devices, and techniques, patients are the ones that benefit. Full stop, right? They get more informed care. They're treated by people who are confident in what they're doing, and they're more likely to experience fewer complications and faster recovery times. But there's another layer to this, and it's something that often goes overlooked. So patient understanding and comfort. And a lot of my peers and that presented before me touched a little bit on this, right? Patients are hungry for information. They're not just trusting what the doctor says. They're Googling, they're watching YouTube, they're scanning forums and Reddit threads. They're trying to figure out what's going to happen when they go under anesthesia or when they are getting ready for any type of procedure. I've experienced this myself. 2 years ago, my mother had a spine surgery, and going through the process, the first thing I did was, hey, I'm going to start searching online, Google, YouTube, ChatGPT, AI was starting to become available. I wanted to understand the procedure, the risks, the steps, the recovery, and I found a lot of content, but not necessarily a lot of clarity, right? So now I want to imagine a different world where a patient is able to receive personalized, narrated walkthrough of the exact procedure that they're about to have, recorded from a real case using immersive technology. So we saw with OnDoc AI that you're already starting to create with your avatars kind of walkthroughs to help with patient education. We want to take it a step further and not just have an infomercial of what that is, but actually give you real exposure to how the real case happens the day off. And have the physician walk you through each step, explaining what's happening, setting the expectations, and using the right visuals instead of just medical jargon that people might not understand. We feel that this doesn't just only build trust, but it reduces anxiety. It allows patients to walk into surgery or procedures not just informed, but reassured. And we believe that practices and physicians should be empowered to provide this kind of insight. This is also where we believe medical device companies have a key role to play. By partnering with practices, medical device companies with practices to capture immersive case recordings of common procedures, device companies can help build robust, high-quality libraries that serve a dual purpose: physician education, but also patient education. Similar to the library that John from OnDoc AI mentioned, as well from Mainstay Medical, but with the actual immersive procedure as well. Right, so these libraries become assets that physicians can use to explain techniques, show how a device is used, demonstrate why a specific approach was chosen. It really does become part of the patient experience, not just the physician's toolkit, right? So that's kind of the forward-thinking organizations that we want to work with that are taking this step, creating their own branded patient education hubs with immersive content and having a real impact on patient satisfaction and confidence, right? Ultimately, when patients understand what's happening and why they're more likely, to follow through with care plans, right? Ask the right questions, feel empowered in their journey, and that's really what better medicine looks like. Now, I'm going to leave you with just a quick outro video, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Experience surgical procedures like never before. Imertech VR provides an immersive and interactive environment that allows you to watch surgical procedures from anywhere. Feel like you're inside the OR, following every movement without having any distractions. Focus on what's most important to you by customizing your view by moving and expanding medical feeds. Collaborate with your peers by having real conversations and highlighting important information.
Dr. Ascot, is there any rationale for starting with one side versus the other? If you look at the scans, the implant, it's really collapsed on one side. And that's the side of the
Experience for yourself all of the possibilities that Imertech VR has to offer. Imertech, making training more exciting and accessible for all.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
We've covered a lot today. But
Thanks.
this is
Yeah. Thank you. I think we do have a question for you in the chat. And it says, how does Imertech work? Is there a subscription fee to watch videos, or do you have any industry partnerships available for funding?
Yeah, so right now we work mostly with medical device companies. We're also starting to work with organizations like ASIPP and others to try to get into partnerships to really capture those procedures from experts and see if we can make them available to a wider net of physicians, right? We haven't yet started to work directly with physician practices. That might be kind of the next step that we might take into the future. But right now, the idea is that as we work with medical device companies to help them better their training and their outreach on new innovations, that should flow down to physicians so that they get better opportunities, whether it be for teaching, better opportunities for learning and getting up to date with what they're doing, and then actually pass that on to patients.
There is not, to answer the question, there isn't any industry funding for it at this time. Is that accurate? Yes.
Well,
offset the physician costs.
Yeah, not directly. It would have to be through a medical device company or such. Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. Hey, thanks for the presentation. It was awesome and really cool to see. Really immersive technology. So I understand the name Immertech, and I think it's something that could be super helpful for education and training, potentially board exams, etc. Great job, Jordan. We do have another question in the chat for the panelists that we have here. And I suppose it's basically, is Sara Health, and actually, quite honestly, all the technologies, a potential solution to offload or at least monetize the patient inbox burden? And this is a multi-part question, but are there studies for things like reminders to stop blood thinners or checking pain relief after a medial branch block? And then finally, are these things that we talked about today, are these still being built out for interventional pain practices, or are they available now? And so maybe I'll turn over to the panelists to opine on some of those issues, and we'll talk through it.
I think, Stephen, that's great segue for you, probably.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So I think you're probably doing a lot of the work that's required to bill for RTM. Like, you're talking about your patient inbox that you're monitoring. Like, you should be getting paid for that care you're delivering. So I think that's a key piece, is you're probably doing a lot of the work required in a either haphazard or kind of bugshot way. And using a technology like ours or other platforms will allow you to get paid for that care that you're delivering. As far as case studies specific to stopping blood thinners, post MBB pain relief, I'm not aware of any off the top of my head. I will probably go ask ChatGPT this exact question right after we're done here, to be quite honest, and see what it can find and follow up with you on that. But there are studies and evidence around patient engagement and patient knowledge going into procedures leading to better outcomes. So I think if we use that as a bedrock, then I think it is highly likely and reason for optimism. But I don't have an exact 3 citations to send you immediately.
Yeah, I understand. And looking at the tech that you have, I think it would be something that'd be very super easy to integrate. And after watching your presentation, I just want to stress, I don't think this is going to be a lift for any of the physicians to integrate if they wanted to. In other words, I'm sure the folks at Sara Health would help with that integration. You're not going to be sitting there having to build out those things.
No, we have what we call Paul GPT. So not Dr. Hubble Paul, but our chief clinical officer. And that's not shot at Paul, Dr. Hubble. Our chief clinical officer just happens to be named Paul. So he's actually created a LLM that you feed it categories of questions and the type, basically context, and it will build out messaging related to it. So we make it very, very easy. Just give us context and categories, and we can get it going for you.
So until you said that, I actually thought it was Paul Hubble, which
great.
might not be a terrible idea for branding since he's so well known. But now to Ryan, John, and Dr. Montecani, I have to tell you guys, my head is swimming right now with all these opportunities and potential things that we can integrate in the practice. What do you guys think? Or if one of you guys wants to start it off, like if we had to start somewhere, where would we start? Is it creating an avatar first, and then everything kind of flows from that, or what would be next steps of stuff that we can do now to help integrate this into our practice?
So John, I think kind of talked a little bit about this previously on, how you integrate this. But before I comment on here, just wanted to thank everybody for what an incredible presentation. I mean, we really touched on so many impressive topics. And it really ties well into that question you asked. Well, where do you get started? It kind of depends on really the need of your practice, right? Where are you identifying that there are gaps in where you can improve efficiencies or access to knowledge bases for your patients? I think in my practice, the easiest opportunity has been to create the physician avatar, because the patient education part was a key component where I thought I could really change the experience for my patients. And by doing so, it changed the workflow. And by doing that, it allowed me to actually bring on other vendors like we talked about on the platform today on board. And so I think that's one opportunity to kind of, see how that flows. If Dr. Ranson's still available, he may be able to pop on and talk about what he did to kind of change that. Dr. Hubble's on, so I think he may also be able to comment on that. But mainly, you want to kind of go back and reflect on where in your practice do you see a need, and then where is the easiest point for engagement? Because sooner rather than later, we should begin to integrate these things so that you are known as the innovator in your community on some of these technologies. And the easiest way forward that I found is really through the patient access and the engagement portion.
Yeah, the real interesting thing is there was a number of phone calls that my PAs had to take every day. And the number of phone calls is reducing significantly because the questions that the patients are receiving, for those who participate, are being answered in a quicker and easier way. And many of them, there's not a phone call. There's a simple typed response, it may be 1 or 2 sentences. It takes a lot less time than having a phone call. And those that need a phone call get it, but we're weeding through the comments and being able to prioritize and simplify the answers to those patient questions, so it leaves more time for other things.
I don't
And
know.
then
And John, I noticed this slide up here, about saving your spot to film your on-doc avatar at ASIPP, and it looks like people can scan that and actually schedule a time, but they don't necessarily need to do it in advance, right? If I recall from before, you guys were pretty adaptable about doing it even during exhibit breaks to set up times and stuff. So can you walk us through that process and what that will look like at the annual meeting?
Absolutely. We'll have a adjacent sort of private room that's very quiet. So we'll be in the exhibit hall, obviously, and we'd love to meet everyone there. If you'd like to get filmed and you had a specific time frame that you were going to be there, this is just an online scheduling calendar that you can block a 15-minute block, and that'll allow me to film you and capture your voice, and we can talk about your practice and some of your challenges. I've been to close to 100 practices over the past year, talking about a lot of challenges and new AI solutions. So I'd love to talk to you about your practices as well. So yeah, or otherwise you can just kind of pop over in between sessions. We'll have a room kind of with there will be a banner, so you'll know where it is, and you can pop over and we can get you filmed. So it's not a huge time commitment. Like Dr. Ranson said, I think it was 5 minutes with him. He was quick. So yeah, but this is if you want to schedule ahead of time. We honor people that have scheduled ahead. So
there's one thing I wanted to mention with what I've been able to do with my avatar with Valet Health doing my marketing and the avatar that I've created. Now, the new rules we have for radio frequency, where if you don't have it retreated within 2 years, you have to start over doing the blocks. Well, we started to send out, notices to patients with the avatar about why you might need to have the radio frequency repeated if you're having pain. And please realize that if it goes past 2 years, you'll have to start over doing the block. So I'm using my avatar and marketing digitally to actually get patients to pay attention to call and schedule.
Paul, you're doing this is Lax. You're using all types of these things. So how much are you spending per month? My next question is going to be for John and all others. Can we come up with a solution where all of these companies can collaborate and have a easy price for physicians to choose? and they subscribe to one group and they get all the services if they want to. Is there any opportunity for that? John, would you like to collaborate with others and talk to them and come back?
Yeah, and this is something, Dave Bowen and I and Maddie Crescenzo over at Valet talk about a lot, is building an ecosystem. A lot of the partnerships of all these companies, we all work collaboratively, we talk, we share information about our products, and ultimately what we're trying to do is create things that work together. And this, I think, is where ASIPP comes into, ASIPP has written all the CMS guidelines. They are basically, what has established pain management to be what it is today. And so by having a lot of the clinical side of our technology, right, having that leadership from ASIPP, and having that sort of be the linchpin of how we all operate in terms of training our AIs and all of that, that's important, because if you leave it to us to figure out how to build solutions for physicians, you may get some mismatch. So yes, I'd love to work together, love to bundle it all together, but ultimately ASIPP has so much data that can be incorporated into these products to make them really specific for pain. So I think it's a larger conversation. But I appreciate the opportunity and all these other companies and working together. I mean, this has been it's a new time in technology, and everyone needs to work together, I think.
Well, ASIPP is also working on multiple issues with documentation and fraud and abuse investigations. And like Paul was there in Washington along with us, he was instrumental in introducing that bill on fraud and abuse. So we are doing several things at several levels. And of course, we are working with all Medicare and Medicaid, multiple insurance companies. So I think that will be a good idea if we can do the collaboration. Looks like it ended. Did we
Not
end
yet.
it?
Not
No?
yet.
Okay.
But Dr. Manchicotti, this is Dave Bowen speaking, and John, I'd just say one quick thing about the collaboration. I think that we've got a unique and diverse group of individuals who've been involved with interventional pain for many, many years. And John and ourselves and Sarah Health and the ones that we're working closely with, we will be able to offer a packaged type of a deal in an appropriate way. The other thing is we have been working with manufacturers. Valley Health specifically has been working with manufacturers for years. So we build out custom web pages and social media and all of those types of things. That was a question that came early on, having the quality of materials. So this collaboration of us already having those licensing agreements or those utilization agreements with the manufacturers allows us to pass those on to OnDoc and build that library of professional quality videos, even if the manufacturer hasn't completely signed on yet, giving us the ability to utilize these types of relationships to build data, because that's what the manufacturers want to see is how is this, because it's so early on, how is this being utilized in the practices and what are the returns on investment? It's a great, Dr. Sohn mentioned that return on investment is so important. If you don't have the data, you really can't show the return on investment. So the collaboration is everyone on this call, but it is the patient. It is also the manufacturers. And I recommend it offline. We get a HIPAA compliancy group involved with our next venture in this arena that is utilizing AI. I spoke to him yesterday, just too late to get him involved this time. But that is another key component of how we collaborate in a HIPAA compliant environment and provide these services, ensuring that patients get the right education. So I echo what everybody else said. Great presentations. Learned a lot today and really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, we can schedule another Zoom call sometime and discuss these things for an hour or so, just ourselves. So, okay. Thank you. It has been great. I hope everybody learned a lot. And thank you, all of you, especially the sponsors and attendees, delegates. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
you at the annual
Yes.
meeting.
Thank you, everybody, and shout out to John and Ryan for preparing for this meeting. And yeah, this will be recorded. I think that was a question there. Have a good day, everybody.